Ms. Folds, Ms. Reckler.
Howdy.
Mr. Phillips, audio is good. So we are waiting on O3 and Dimitriya. Dimitriya is here. So I think is he on by phone? I see O3 now.
Sorry, they were in the attendee panel. I just promoted.
Oh, okay. Got it. Morning.
Hi, good morning.
And O3, can we check your audio? Can you just say something?
Yes, I'm here. I'm present.
Great. All right.
Good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m. Happy to see you all here today on this beautiful morning. We are going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I would like to welcome you to the retreat, or the first retreat of the West Contra Costa USD Board of Education. Mr. Duffy, roll call, please.
Good morning. President Phillips?
Present.
Clerk Smith Folds?
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Present.
Trustee Christian?
Present.
Trustee Reckler?
Good morning, present.
All present and accounted for.
Thank you so much, sir. So next we're going to move to our only agenda item, which is team building for today. We are going to have public comment on this particular item. So I will just very briefly talk about how we do the public comment. This meeting will provide public comment opportunities through the Zoom app or by telephone. To indicate your desire to speak on an agenda item, raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing 9 if accessing the meeting by phone. In order to be recognized to speak, your hand must be raised before the public comment begins for the item. Team building is the only item that we actually have today. So if there is anyone who wants to provide public comment on that item in particular, now would be the time to raise your hand. Mr. Aurelio, we're just going to give them a moment to do that because we're doing it a little differently today.
President Phillips, this is Bobby Jordan. There are 2 hands currently raised.
Okay, Mr. Jordan, please let them begin.
Did you want a timer or?
Yes, Mr. Jordan, it's still the normal 20 minutes and 1 minute and 30 seconds per person.
Okay. Would you like me to call the first name?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Joseph Glatzer, if you could unmute, you are now available to speak.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Okay, so thank you, Joseph Glatzer, history teacher, Hercules Middle, formerly of Pinole Middle. So thank you everybody for being here, and let me see. So I hope that you discuss how to work as a team this year during this term, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all, have that teamwork and that cooperative spirit to address our common challenges. We have many, including school reopening, dealing with COVID and vaccines, and there's just so much on the agenda. And I'm also hoping that you work together on the committees I'm looking forward to hearing more about that because I haven't seen it on any board agendas so far. So I'm curious to hear what the committees are going to be and who's going to be on them. And also, I hope you work together in scheduling high interest items like charter schools or school reopening issues at the beginning of the meeting, so as many people as possible can actually participate and have their voices heard. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Tom Panis. If you can unmute.
Good morning, board members. Thanks very much for having this retreat, and I think it's very important to build a team. I'd like to suggest that you go back and take a quick look at your December 16 meeting, because if you look for starting at minute 43:10, you'll see that we didn't do a proper election for the clerk, and I think you might want to go back and redo that and make sure it's done properly. Thank you. Specifically, the president declared Ms. Smith-Fold to be clerk when she only had 2 votes because he didn't ask her to vote. Thank you.
President Phillips, we have an additional hand that was raised. Do you want to allow that comment?
That's fine.
Hello, Mr. John Erminger. If you could unmute, you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this is, I think it relates to team building if we consider the district community a team. And that is, I'm expressing my hope that the district will continue to move agenda items dealing with issues with high public interest, including issues that relate to charter schools, to the beginning of board meetings. And that's because no other issue drives public participation at school board meetings more than charters. So in the interests of public engagement and transparency, I'm hoping the district will continue its agenda setting flexibility when warranted by large turnouts at school board meetings. Placing charters at the end of school board meetings effectively chokes public input on an issue of great concern to many WCCUSD community members on all sides of the issue. And charter business is an integral part of West Contra Costa business. What affects charters also affects West Contra Costa and vice versa. So I'm hoping that you'll continue that flexibility that the district has historically shown. Thank you very much.
President Phillips, I do not see any other hands raised. I believe that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the people that called in today for public comment. As we move forward in the future, please remember that if it's public comment on a particular item, it's on that item. We will have general public comment at our next board meeting, which is where we can talk about all of the other things that people have brought up today that had nothing to do with the item. But that said, we are now moving into what is going to be a fun day of team building exercises. And we are going to begin by doing an icebreaker. And in this icebreaker, what I'm going to ask you all to do individually is to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then to answer 3 questions. The first question is, and I'll repeat these if we need to, but the first question is, what was your first job or volunteer experience in education? That's the first question. And I'll let people, I see people writing. It's what was your first job or volunteer experience in education? The second question is, what is your favorite TV show or movie about schools and why? That's the second question. What is your favorite TV show or movie about schools and why? I see Mr. Gonzalez Hoy thinking. And then the third question is, what do you hope to get out of today? So again, we are going to tell each other a little bit about ourselves. We're going to answer 3 questions, and then we'll shift to the next part, which will be the actual exercises. Okay, so I will begin and try to model the best that I can. So my name is Mr. Phillips. In case anybody is wondering, that is literally the name that is on my birth certificate. I didn't adopt it later on in life like Prince or something like that. I am married to Angela Phillips. We have been married for 10 years. We will celebrate our 11th wedding anniversary in June. We have 4 children. They are Marist, who is 9, Mr. the Second, who is 6, Sterling, who's 4, and Amanzi, who is 2. We live in the city of Richmond, California. I am the 4th generation of my family to live in Richmond. My children would make generation number 5. Well, let's see. In my private life, I am an attorney. I have my own law practice. I was on a phone call with the PLC, which is our Parent Leadership Council, and they swore that I was doing these meetings in a closet. I'm not in a closet right now. I'm actually in my office. I had to move my computer to show them that, but that's what I do. So I run a small business. It's a small law office. Prior to doing that, I've done several other jobs. I've worked as a labor rep. I was a naval officer in the reserves, and I'm really glad to be here. So that's a little bit about me. And the 3 questions. My first job in education is I was one-to-one aide for a special needs child at an elementary school. So that was my first job, and it was I really liked it, and I've been doing things in and about public education ever since. I believe I was 18 years old when I got that job. So I'm uh, 42 now, which gives you an idea of how long I've been in and about public education. My favorite TV show or movie about schools, it's a TV show, and it's Mr. Iglesias on Netflix, if you guys haven't seen it. The reason why Mr. Iglesias is my favorite TV show about schools, one, it's a public school um, where, and it's actually, in Long Beach is the setting of it. So the kids, um, and in some ways the faculty are kind of like ours. Um, Everybody is I mean, it's Fluffy is a comedian. That's the main person in the show, but he's funny, right? So the school has a sense of humor. They deeply care about the kids. They meet them where they are, wherever they are, and they respect them while they're doing that. The staff um, generally collaborates with one another. They generally like to be around each other. At the end of the day, they actually go out and, I'm not telling anybody to get drinks, but they go out and get drinks together because they like to be around each other. I just think it's a positive environment. And whatever happens in the show, they always do it with a sense of humility, a sense of humor, and they kind of bring it back to where it's supposed to be, which is the children. So that is my favorite show, TV show, and why. And then um, what do I hope to get out of this day? I hope to learn more about all of you um, and to be able to have a better understanding of what pushes you and drives you into this work and where you're coming from. So that will allow me to work better with you. So that's me doing that icebreaker and trying to model it for you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez Hoy to do the same thing.
Thank you, President Phillips, and it was very nice to hear about you and your background. I learned quite a few things, even though we've known each other for a few years. My name is Dimitriya Gonzalez Hoy. I came to the United States when I was 14 years old. My parents and I moved to a place called Encinitas, which is a small community in northern San Diego, very privileged. When I started my career in high school, I was known as one of the 10 Mexican kids in our school because that was the lack of diversity. And sometimes people literally numbered us, which honestly kind of shaped a little bit of my understanding of school and honestly my first time dealing with racism in my life because of the privilege in my community. But I am really thankful for the way that I was brought up and the way that honestly, also that school shaped me in a positive way. I was able to go to Sac State for school. And I owe that to the teachers that supported me in high school and the support of my family and friends. I became a teacher in West Contra Costa in 2013. I didn't actually expect to become a teacher. I went to school to be, I studied political science. I studied linguistics. I graduated with a major. But then I started to get interested in education because, and it kind of answers your first question, Mr. Phillips. My first job in education, I actually became I started working at a child center, and I took care of babies who were 6 months to 2 years old in my college, of students who were attending college and they needed a place to leave their babies. And now it helps because now my wife jokes that I've learned how to change babies' diapers. So, now I'm used to that. But, through that work, I got interested in kids and how to support education, even though they're so little and so different. That's how I got interested. And then I learned about a program called Teach for America that placed me in Richmond. And I'm really thankful for that because now I call Richmond my home. I became a teacher at Bayview Elementary School, and I owe a lot to Bayview Elementary School. I made great friendships, and that's where I met my wife, who at the time was a 6th grade teacher, and I was a 3rd grade teacher. And that was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Yeah, I hope she's not watching because it's a test. Then the rest is history. And we got married a year and a half ago. And her name's Alyssa. She's a teacher now at Mira Vista School, where her mom's also a teacher. She's 2nd grade and her mom teaches 4th grade. And they're able to shape also my view of our schools because they bring in the history for me, because I've only lived here for 8 years, but they're actually, my wife is a 4th generation teacher in our district, which is pretty amazing. Her grandma was one of the starting teachers at Nystrom when they had school from 7 in the morning to 9 p.m. at night, and there were shifts of teachers because it was one of the largest schools in the Bay Area. So they're able to bring that to me, which I lack. So it's great. And to go into the second question, what is my favorite TV show at schools? In Mexico, when I lived there, I used to watch Recess. I don't know if you all remember. A bunch of white folks, a bunch of white kids in a school. And honestly, that shaped my view of what I thought I was getting into when I moved to the United States. To some extent, the view of the kids was the same. It wasn't recess all day long, right? So totally my understanding of school was a shock because I always thought school in the United States was exactly like the show. And I was gonna have a great time and it was gonna be recess all day, right? So that's my favorite show because I think of how it shaped my view when I moved to another country. And what I hope about getting about today, kind of what we already started and what President Phillips said, I just want to get to know each other a little bit more, what drives us, what got us here. And honestly, as I know you more and hear about what drives in your history, that makes me understand why you make decisions, right? And why we all make decisions the way we do. Which is fantastic. So thank you, and I'm excited to continue this day with you all.
Thank you very much, sir. And just so you know, the order that we're going in right now is the order that the exercises will go as well. So the next person is Mr. Christian.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, President Phillips. Um, I'm so happy to be here. Thankful. I just want to start off by saying I grew up in Richmond, born and raised, grew up in Richmond. My family comes from the South, from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And my father comes from East Texas, out of a place called Longview, Texas. And they came here in the 40s, and they didn't know each other until they got out here to California. And when their family came here during the war, building of the shipyards and so forth. And so my family been anchored here in Richmond since 1940s. So my history. About me, I got my community activist from my auntie, which is named Lily Mae Jones, and she was a great archives in Richmond, and she fought for the city of Richmond. She was one that stood up to the status quo. She was one that fought for our young people with summer jobs. I remember the city of Richmond had over 200 summer jobs, 500 summer jobs. Kids had jobs to go to. And so I come from that great lineage, and also a little bit about me. I went to Martin Luther King School, Adams and Kennedy. Adams is no longer, but King School is still here, and Kennedy High School. So I learned from my auntie and so forth, and where it takes me to is to have a passion for the community and have a love, and you want to see things done effectively done right, and you want to see people to go to the next level. One of the things about me, and I guess what was my experience working in the schools, it started in Dallas, Texas. But let me just kind of go this route. When I graduated from Kennedy, I kind of stayed around, went to DVC, and then after that, what inspired me to go on to a further higher education was the Bill Cosby show, A Different World. A Different World inspired me to go to a historical Black college in Washington, D.C., Howard University, where I got my education from, and I'm proud to be a HU student, Howard University. And also I had a chance to work on Capitol Hill with all the turmoil that you see what took place the other day. But I worked inside the Capitol Hill. I had a chance to go in all the aspects of the Capitol, and it's beautiful. And believe it or not, they have underground. Nah, but it's beautiful. And then also I had a chance to go to the White House when Bill Clinton got elected, and also when and also at his inauguration. And I was right there standing out there where Biden will be sworn in coming up on January the 20th. And it's amazing. I said, like, man, I couldn't believe I was standing out there. So, and then in Washington, D.C., I worked with so many young people in the inner city where my love and my passion was to help our young people to go to the next level, to struggle families and struggle kids that struggle. And so my journey carries from there. I graduated from Howard, and then I went to Texas. And I went to a school called Southwestern Christian College, where I worked in, I got my degree in ministry. And so I am a ministry person in the community. And my nature is to see people being empowered to go to the next level. That's our young people, older people, everybody to go to the next level, because we have what it takes in us to be the best people that we can be and achieve whatever we want in life. We can go to the next level. So so there's a whole lot I could go on, but I ended up coming back to California. I came back to take care of my mom because I love it in Texas. I love it in Dallas. And I got a lot of family out there and friends. And I still talk to this day. And so, and they call and check on me all the time. But I came back to Richmond, and I've been taking care of my mom since then. and I'm glad to be back here. I landed at El Cerrito High School, and worked at El Cerrito all the way up until I got sworn in. And I always been involved in the city of Richmond. I was on the neighborhood council, the Iron Triangle Neighborhood Council. I fought in our community to help improve our community. See, a lot of people don't realize I done been in a lot of places. I just don't talk about it. I don't gloat about it, but I do know people from East Coast, South, West, and North, so, But the thing is, I just like to just stay humble and just be who I am and keep pushing forward. But I am a fighter and I will stand up to the status quo. That's pretty much.
So let's see, Mr. Christian, your first, I got it. You started in Dallas with education, and your TV show was A Different World. Great show. And then what do you hope to get out of today?
What I hope to get out today is that we continue to build and push forward and stay together, because the key, see, division comes when other fractions come, but what can keep us together is that we stay to the task of serving the people and working together for the common goal is to uplift and build up the community of our school district, and seeing our schools prosper and seeing our school district to be the top #1 school district in this area. I mean, I really believe in that, and I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. So that's what I want to see is unity. And like I said, ministry is my forte, and as I see unity is the key to every success of every facet of life. And so today we're gonna build.
Thank you, sir. All right. And we're going to move on to the next person, who is Trustee Reckler. And just a reminder, so it's tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you're going to answer 3 questions. The first question is, what was your first job or volunteer experience in education? The second question is, what is your favorite TV show or movie about schools and why? And the third question is, what do you hope to get out of today? So, Mrs. Reckler.
Thank you and good morning to everybody. My name is Leslie Reckler, and I was born in New York City and grew up outside of New York City, north in Westchester County. I went to public school. It was an absolutely fabulous experience. When I look back on all the years of schooling that I've had, and I've been very privileged to be able to work all the way up through a master's degree. When I look back, the best teaching I had in my entire life was in my elementary school and in my high school. It was just a marvelous, marvelous experience of support and friends and community. I have spent my entire life, except for a small stint as a reporter, working in food in some way, shape, or form. If it hasn't been a restaurant, it's been in food manufacturing, buying and merchandising. It was an extremely rewarding career where I got to travel around the world, finding different products and bringing them to market. Highly recommend, want to work with our kids on CTE in food and all the jobs that are available in food and food service. It's really great. I have 2 children that have requested to remain anonymous and at this point want to go into the witness protection program. One is a freshman in the district and one is a college sophomore. I have been married for a really, really, really long time. I'm not going to tell you how long, but I'm really, really proud of that relationship. I think that's probably enough about me. So the question I'm really struggling with is the favorite TV show, because first I couldn't think of any, and now I'm starting to think of them, and I'm not going to say them because for just various reasons. Maybe not the best example. And so I'm going to say The Paper Chase, and the reason I'm going to say The Paper Chase is that we've been trying to think of movies that we could watch that my kids, might have missed or in the pandemic. And so we were just talking about The Paper Chase the other day about a ornery law school professor and his class and the work that they did. So I'll put that one out there. I could think of other ones, but we'll hold it on that. And then what I want to get out of today is really echoing what everybody else has said, is to know you all better and to find commonality. And that's really it, where we can push forward together. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And then last but not least, Trustee Smith-Folds.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamila Smith-Folds. I was born and raised in Alabama. My birthday is 8/13/1977. Just put it on your calendar. I am a Leo. I was born in the heat of Alabama summer, so I have all of those good traits that go with being born in the heat. I am married. I've been with my husband for 23 years. We met at Auburn University. I went 4 hours away from home because I thought that was a big deal. I thought I was grown, but it was still close enough to where my parents could get to me if I didn't know or needed help, but it was far enough away that I could kind of be myself. When I got to college, I went from my middle name to my first name because I thought that was the transition. So my whole life I was called Maisha. And then when I went to college, I became Jamila. So my full name is Jamila Maisha Smith-Folds. I took that up when I had kids. I was like, I want to give them a long name so they can be anything they want to be and they can pick and choose that name at a given time. So I have my oldest daughter, our oldest daughter is Irish Abby O'Hagan Kenobi Folds. I don't know, maybe I don't know if I should tell their whole name, but hopefully nobody's gonna steal their identity. But the middle one is Haven Zoe O'Hagan Kofi Lane, and the smallest one is Clover Grace O'Hagan Marley Kai. The cool thing about it is all of them have a K in their name. And you may say, well, why do they have a K in one of their names? Because when we go back to Alabama, I want to get off the airplane and say, come on, KKK, just to be funny. So that's why we did that. And we did it on purpose and intentionally because, it is what it is. They are in the district, 2 of them, 2 out of 3 of them are in the district. The baby is homeschooled. We came out here because my husband wanted to go to school. The liberal arts school in Alabama wasn't giving him what he needed, and he wanted to be a puppeteer. So he said, hey, do you want to go to California? I was like, hey, do you want to marry me? He was like, sure. I was like, all right, let's go. So we came to California, and he is an animator. He's worked on a lot of things, which is really, really cool. And that's a little bit about me. Like I could really go on and on. Oh, Mr. Christian, I too am a minister. Thank you, internet. I have married 2 couples. They are still together. So great. And I don't know, I like that part of it. My mom is a minister and both my parents are scientists. I have an older brother who is also a scientist. He's an engineer. And I didn't want to do that because I was a brat and the little sister. So I didn't want to be a scientist like everybody else. So I decided to be English and history teacher. So, just to stick it to them. And my first job or experience in education is when I was a little kid. Everybody played dolls and they played with each other. And every time the friend group would say, what do you want to play, Maisha? And I was like, school, I'm the teacher. And that's where it started. I would always be the teacher. No, I would not play if they wanted me to be the student. I would always be the teacher. I had to be the teacher at everything because I have that little sense of bossiness. But I like to say it, I just know where we want to go. So I don't think it's bossy, it's just directional. When I went to college, I had to do work study because I had to pay for college. So I worked and went to college at the same time. I was in the teacher program that I was in. They had to have someone who did statistics. So I would track teachers. So I would track and see how many times they called on girls, how many times they called on boys, how many times they called on the person in the front or the person in the back. So I would sit and I would track that. And then I would give it to the professor, and the professor would then turn around and show the teachers that we do have biases. Like, so if we're a girl, we usually call on girls. So I would do that. And then my best friend in college said, hey, you need to come work at Little Caesars. I was like, ma'am, that is not going to pay through college. She was like, no, you got to work at Little Caesars. It's this boy I want you to meet. And I was like, okay. So then I worked at, I did the statistical thing and I worked at Little Caesars, and Little Caesars is where I met my husband. So yay, pizza. My favorite TV show or movie, hands down, Lean on Me. When I saw Lean on Me, I knew I wanted to be Joe Clark. I knew it it was just in me. I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I wanted to do. From that little girl who always wanted I want to be the teacher, to Joe Clark. I was like, this is it. And when I started teaching at Auburn University, there was no Joe Clark. I was like, like, you know, what's happening? Like, there's no tension, there's no need, there's no spark, or Auburn High School. And then we moved to California, and I got the grand opportunity to work at Gompers Continuation High School. Best thing that ever happened to me. It was the feeling of what I was looking for. It was the spark. It was those kids taught me how to be a teacher, and I will forever be grateful to the kids of Gompers Continuation High School. What do I hope to get out of today? I want to figure out what makes us all the same. We have very unified kind of visions about what we want with kids and what we think about how to improve the district and all that. I want to know what's those cool things that make us different, because I think those different things that we bring to the table are our strengths too. So that's what I want to get out of today. That's it, President Phillips. I'm finished.
Thank you so much. We are now, oh, yes, ma'am.
If I may, I think I forgot to tell you my first experience in education. And so it started when I was very little. I believe I was in the 9th or 10th grade, and I used to tutor kids in my neighborhood. And I've done that ever since. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. We are going to go to the actual exercises now. That was just to get us warmed up. Every board member is going to lead an exercise. I'm not going to lead one. I'm going to be participating with you all. So each exercise, you have up to 50 minutes. It doesn't have to last that long, but you have up to 50 minutes to complete your exercise, and you are going to facilitate your exercise. So the first person to lead us is actually Mr. Dimitriya Gonzalez Hoy. So we are going to turn it over to him. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hoy and Trustee Phillips, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a built-in break or no? I just need to know so I can get myself together.
We will take a break at some point, but not in his exercise.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Trustee Hoy, thank you.
It's okay. Thank you, President Phillips, and thank you, Smith Folks, for always reminding us. Otherwise, I'd turn off my camera and run away for a bit. So I'm glad you bring that always. So for our exercise, I was talking to Trustee Phillips about a huge part of our work, which is our employees. And to all of us, there's been employees, whether in the district that we attended or in our current district, that have shaped us in some way and have shaped our advocacy and have shaped who we are. So for this exercise, what I want us to think about is a school employee that has shaped your life in a positive way. And we're gonna all go through sharing the story of who that person was, how they shaped you, what they did to support you in a positive way. And then after that, we're all gonna go again, and we're gonna talk about a situation of a school employee that shaped you in a negative way and that affected you in a negative way. So more or less, for the first section, we're gonna have 5 minutes each to talk about the positive employee. And then again, when we go again, it'll be another 5 minutes, because that way it will stay within the 15 minutes. And I'll start us up. But right now, so that we're all engaging and listening, if it's okay, President Phillips, I would like to give everybody 2 minutes to just think through who they're thinking about. Because even just last night, as I was thinking about it, it took me a while to think about really the one person I wanted to talk about. So it's okay, I'll give everybody 2 minutes to think, and then I'll go, and just like President Phillips did, I will mirror how we're supposed to do it, and then I'll call everybody up to go. Is that okay? Okay, so I'll put 2 minutes on my timer, and then I'll start us up. Any questions before we go in 2 minutes?
Mr. Gonzalez, I just sent you and everybody a text, a little note in the chat. Maybe you want to just share around how you want to use personal names.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Duffy. Yeah, if we can keep names, either make up a name or just call them by, maybe their first letter, like Miss T is like who I'm thinking about, or Miss C or whatever. Then that way we don't put anyone out there in a positive or negative. Thank you, Superintendent Duffy. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, it could be anyone. It could be a teacher, it could be a classified staff, it could be a principal, it could be a superintendent, right? Whoever has affected you. So I'll put 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, so that was 2 minutes, but obviously you're welcome to continue thinking about it as other people go. So I'll start, and I'm gonna have a timer, but I'm not gonna stop you if you go over the time, right? I'll just kind of like just give you a heads up, just to make sure that we stay in time. So someone in my life who had a very positive effect, I'm incredibly thankful about. Is my high school homeroom teacher, Miss C. I like I mentioned in my introduction, when I moved to the United States, I spoke very little English, very little to the point that I didn't really understand what was going on in my classrooms. So my parents, and I think you've all heard about my story through the campaign trail about how my parents asked my school district at the time for supports. And instead of giving me supports for a newcomer student, they put me into a special day class with kids who had high disabilities, autism, and even the teachers in the special day class didn't speak Spanish. So really, they just did it as a way to tell my parents, oh, we're providing him supports, but not really providing me anything. So I really struggled. My first year in the United States. Like I mentioned, first time, it was a culture shock. I was going through racism for the first time in my life, at least. And I, on top of that, I didn't know anyone and I didn't know the language. So it was a very frightening time. And because of the color of my skin, I am a whiter Mexican, and the white students in my school didn't accept me because I didn't speak their language, and then the Latino students didn't accept me because I didn't also look like them. So I felt like I didn't fit anywhere. But my homeroom teacher, Miss C, really took me under her wing. Her and another teacher really spent so much of their time, not just to support me with my language. After school, they would spend sometimes hours in supporting me to learn English. But then she also created this atmosphere in homeroom where I felt I was part of a family that really got me out of the hole that I was at. I really don't think that I would have ended up here with you all if it wasn't for what she did. And through that, like the friendships I made through homeroom, which ended up becoming my lifelong friendships. And with her, just her constant checking in every day, sometimes, maybe I shouldn't say this, but sometimes we would even all skip our assemblies to stay with her, and we would play games and we would talk about our lives because she cared at a deeper level. You know, my parents were going through a divorce. My mom actually left the United States when I was in high school, and she ended up becoming a motherly figure in some ways. She was checking on my grades. She was checking on me every day, how things were going, which no one else was doing. And you know, we ended up forming a lifelong friendship. She ended up coming to my wedding a year and a half ago, which was amazing. And you know, I'm never gonna forget that. We're still, thankfully, we still have social media, right? In some ways, thankfully, where her and I are still in touch a lot. And in many ways, she definitely also led me to applying to colleges. She was the one pushing me to apply. She is the one that supported me with my applications. So I really don't think maybe I would have ended up even going to university if it wasn't for her push. So she ultimately really created a positive guiding environment for me. And I can think, and that's ultimately the environment I wanted to build for my newcomers when I became a bilingual teacher in our district. So that was Missy for me. So I will now pass it on to the next person. And if you're not ready, please let me know, and then we can just go to the next person and come back to you, because I want to make sure that you do feel ready for this section. So I'll pass it on to Trustee Christian, but let me know if not, and then we can ask someone else to go.
Yes. Can you just give me just a few more minutes?
Yeah, no worries. Trustee Reckler, it's okay if you go next? And we'll go back to Trustee Christian.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Okay.
So without a doubt, there was a high school English teacher, and if anybody from my hometown happens to see this, they're going to know exactly who I'm talking about, who taught in our high school for, I think, close to 30 years. And this particular person had the magic of communication. Every child, not only in the school, and he happened to teach, I think it was 11th and 12th grade, so he was pretty far up there. So even if you were in 7th grade or 8th grade or 9th grade, you knew who this person was, and this person had the most amazing command over every student. And schools are quite different these days. We had routine fights every day. There was a fight in the cafeteria. I mean, it wasn't even anything out of the ordinary. And he would just walk in and like raise a hand, and everybody would just stop. His attendance in his class was impeccable. His engagement in class was impeccable. Everybody showed up for his class. People got involved in yearbook and different literary magazines because of him and his unbelievable personality. So he was just a force within the school, you know, and to meet people like that who are able to engage students in, you know, he used to teach things like Shakespeare and, you know, things that, you know, I didn't care then. I don't think kids care now, but he was able to, you know, bring that to life. And he would always say it was because he was able to solicit opinions and interpretations from kids, and it's really true. So then he makes this big joke at the end of his career. He says, I mean, he actually put together the curriculum for the first AP in our high school. And he actually ends up, he says at the end of his career, when education becomes so micromanaged and so standardized, and the pushing of AP tests and like taking power away from teachers, is when he decided to retire. And he actually went on to become a real estate agent, and he ended up making a killing, of course, because, you know, as they say, he could sell an Eskimo snow. So he actually ended up, you know, like this really wealthy guy from real estate, because once again, he just had this, you know, way with people. So I would definitely say that he was the most influential in generations of students. Everybody knows who this guy is. On the flip side, I would say that the the experience which was the most painful would have been
Trustee Reckler,
oh, you just want to hold on that?
We're gonna go
Okay.
around again and talk about that.
So that's
piece,
it.
no worries.
It was just a wonderful, just like someone who was able to just bring everybody to the table. It was truly remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. That was great. Trustee Christian, would you like to go now, or would you like me to come back to you still?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
I had to think on this and just really look at it, and to be real in a way. And sometimes we like to hide stuff, but I just look on my experience growing up here in this area, coming through the school system here. And one of the things I look at is, how you have a mentor, people helping you. When I look at my experience in elementary, I didn't have that. I was like a kid that was pushed to the side or excluded, didn't feel part of things. And then when I, just think back, on the teachers, I mean, I really didn't have, all I knew was I was supposed to go to school. And the thing was to get education. That and I wanted an education, but I just didn't have that wraparound or people to help me to go to the next level. And for me to just really, I just got to be real about, I haven't had the, from elementary, I didn't have it right here in this district. And that carried on from elementary, middle through high school. But I do know that I was supposed to get an education. And that's why I said what really inspired me. And when I went to Howard University, it changed my life because I had teachers, professors out there who helped African-American students, because it's a historical Black college, but they also empowered the minds and they gave you a self-identity of who you are as a person. I didn't have an identity in elementary. I didn't have an identity in middle, and I didn't have an identity in high school. And I always ask this question today: why people only choose certain people who they want and who they want to help, and that's the reason why I have a passion for our community, a passion to help build the mindsets of our young people, because I know there's a lot of disadvantages out here. So I've been affected in so many ways, and that's the reason why I'm a fighter now. I know who I am, and if these kids know if they have a self-identity, they can go to the next level. And that's pretty much.
Thank you, Trustee Christian. That was really well done. Thank you for keeping it very real.
Mr. Gonzalez Hoy?
Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Phillips.
I'm sorry, and I know I said I wasn't going to do this. 2 seconds. Mr. Christian, you talked about what happened in K-12, but you also mentioned that there were some higher ed teachers, because they're still teachers, right, who actually gave you that. Can you just talk about what those people did so we know what you think a good educator looks like? Because I heard that part too. Can you talk about them for a little bit?
You talking about from the experience from here, or
No. You said when you got to Howard, that there were some educators or people on staff that took you under their wing and really gave you what you needed. Can you talk about the good things that they did for a little bit?
Yes. And one of the things when I got to Howard, they had they helped kids that come from disadvantaged areas. What they did, they provided the resources, the wraparound services to help, you where you was failing and where you didn't have a strong foundation, they helped me to go to the next level. And so a lot of professors, I think back, they cared because they understood the struggle, and they understood that you have to build the mindsets of young African American students, and how that it's very important because great leaders came out of the historical colleges. And so by that, they want to make sure that they continue to develop leaders to go back to the communities. And with those professors, they had love, they cared, they made sure that you had the things you need, and that you was not afraid to go to those teachers because they helped you, and you was open with them, and they said, okay, young man, we're gonna help you go to the next level. It was professors, like men and women, who invested into the mindsets of our young people, and I was one of them. And I'm thankful that I went to Howard University.
Thank you, President Phillips. I think that was great. I'm glad you asked that. And thank you, Trustee Christian, for expanding on what you said. So we'll move to Trustee Smith-Folds, if you're ready.
I am. I went to Harlan Elementary School in Florence, Alabama, and I lived right across the street from the school. Literally, there was just a hill that separated my house from the elementary school. And my parents both had full-time jobs, so they left early in the morning, and it was up to my brother and I to get up, get dressed, eat breakfast, and go to school. So I would walk, and my brother never waited on me because he's my older brother, so he would take off, and then I would be the last one to lock the door and put the key around my neck, because we were latchkey kids, put the key around my neck, and then I would walk across the hill and I would go to our elementary school. And every day from kindergarten to 6th grade, my principal stood outside the school and he would shake every kid's hand. Every kid that walked to school or got dropped off to school, he would stand there, and he's got his angel wings now. He passed away, but he did generations, year after year after year after year after year. You knew where you could find him. You knew he would be right in front of the school by the flagpole, and he would shake your hand. By the time you got probably even out of 1st grade, he knew everybody's name. He knew your name, he knew your parents' name, he knew your siblings' name, he knew your pet's name, because he would not only shake your hand, but he'd have like a 1-minute conversation with you. And when he shook your hand, he was such a grandpa. When he shook your hand, he would squeeze it hard, so you would go, oh, because you were a little kid and that was his thing. But it was the best experience. What that taught me was relationships. You did not want to do poorly because you only wanted him to see you in that morning light where he shook your hand and you would smile. Here's the key. He not only shook every kid's hand when they came, he was out there when you left. So he would help put you in your car, and he would help see you walk home, because we were neighborhood kids, so he could see it. He would watch me walk home. Every afternoon, he would watch me walk back across that hill to make sure that I was safe, he was just that person. And it was one of those things that for me was foundation of someone cared for me outside of my mom and dad. And outside of my immediate family, there was someone there that cared for me. And my brother and everybody in the neighborhood, he was a fixture. I always thought he was related to Mr. Rogers. I don't know, he didn't wear a sweater, but he had that feeling, like it was like, oh, he makes me feel like part of the neighborhood. Like he was a neighborhood fixture, and he was until the day he passed. And even now, that school, you can't help but to drive by my same elementary school and realize that's his spirit on that school. So it's interesting to me that, schools remain, and they remain part of the community. They remain part of who we are, and those people that flow through them remain part of that spirit of that school. So that's my person, and he will always be my person to show me that relationships count, and you need to be somebody's outside besides their mom and dad. We need to be that somebody for people. That's it.
Thank you, Trustee Smith-Folds. That was wonderful. I couldn't stop smiling from your story. So now we're going to go to President Phillips.
Thank you. So I got into trouble sometimes when I was a kid. And we won't describe everything, but I did. And I had trouble in school sometimes as well. So I mean, with the work that I was supposed to, be doing. And sometimes that goes hand in hand, right? The kid that's getting in trouble is oftentimes the kid that needs extra help. So the teacher that I want to talk about is a teacher. Um, uh, this is Mrs. H, and Mrs. H showed me a lot of extra attention. And when I acted out, um, she did not push me away. She actually pulled me closer when I had difficulties with my work. She actually took time and would bring me to her desk um, and work with me, or she would work with me in the space that I was in. Um, when I had problems, and uh, she would call my parents um, and follow up with them and say he did this, or and not in an accusatory way, but in almost like an extended family um, kind of way. And I remember one time I actually was sitting, because this is what parents do. You're a parent, right? You kind of lurk, and your kids don't always know that you're there. They turn around, you're like, "Oh my God, there's Dad!" Right? But I remember one time I was sitting in the desk, and I actually said, "I hate Miss H." Right? I remember I said this, right? And I turned around, and Miss H was standing right behind me, and she heard me. And I remember the look on her face, and she looked truly hurt. It was like if my mom had heard me say, "I hate you." And I did not hate Miss H. I loved Miss H. Even if I did not act that way all the time, I loved her. It was like uh, my mom was at school, and Miss H was a black woman, uh, and I remember Miss H was there for 1 year, and then she was gone. And at the time, like now I know, like sometimes contract, you lose your job, you get laid off, and like I know all these things as an adult now, you know. But at the time, I didn't know. I didn't know. I just knew that there was an adult that was there that really cared about me, and then they were gone. And I swear, like, so I'm talking about like third grade now, right? I swear, I was trying to figure out what happened to her, and I did not know. And nobody told me what happened to her. I thought Miss H was an angel. After I couldn't figure out what happened to this lady, I thought she was an angel, and that God had literally sent this lady to this school to help me. And and then when it was done and I had got the help I needed, that she and I'm just saying because I know that her name is Howard. Okay, so like if she's lit, her name is Howard. This is Miss Howard. Okay, and it was like God sent this lady to help me, and when I didn't need the help anymore, He sent her to help another little boy, and it was years. I mean, I did because this was a child rationalizing what happened in his mind, right? So the lady was an angel, and then she later, as I got, I found out she wasn't really an angel. She was, a real person, and she just went to another job. But that person is the person that stands out the most to me. And I think that even though I was a lot younger, because this is like I said, I'm talking about the third grade. Um, if I had had a different teacher, things could have been very different because um, she really took me and in many ways adopted me, and it was like I had another family member at school who who worked with me despite me. So that's my example.
Thank you, President Phillips, and thank you for being vulnerable. Did you ever connect with Miss Howard again, ever again?
So
Just to ask a quick question, I got
I
curious. Oh, sorry.
no problem. I didn't, and as I was sitting there and like listening to you talk about the teacher from your homeroom, I was actually thinking like, you know what, I'm gonna try to find her and reached back out to her and just, so no, but like your story actually got me thinking, you're like, you need to actually find this lady, because I have remembered this lady like this, the way I just described to you, for like 30 something years.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful. So, you know, as much as like we've had people who have affected us in a positive way, we've also had people who have affected us in a negative way, right? And have also, in many ways, influenced how we've gotten to this point in our life, right? And our advocacy. So now we're going to do the opposite, which is we're going to talk about a school employee, and it can be K through 14, right? Anywhere in our career, in our school career, of someone that has impacted us in that way. And I'll start us up to model. So to me, I'm really thankful I had Miss C on one side, but then on the other side, and their names started with the same letter, so it's kind of funny, but Mr. C was the opposite and the opposite end. And he was my English teacher when I first moved to the United States. Actually, in my second semester, because we had semesters, it was weird, but my second English teacher that I was introduced to when I first moved to the States. And, you know, he was a very strict teacher, which in some ways, like, I always appreciated. But, you know, his class was really targeted, obviously for English speakers, like most of our classes are, because of lack of supports. But, you know, I remember all the time, sometimes I go to visit our high school classes, you know, and to this day, I still can't touch some of these books, like To Kill a Mockingbird, Romeo and Juliet, Lord of the Flies. I still can't go back and read them, because in his class, every time it was time to read, he really liked to read chapters of the books out loud in the class. I would find ways to either get in trouble, or I would find ways to leave the classroom, because I was afraid, deeply, deeply afraid of reading out loud. I was deeply, deeply afraid of getting asked questions about the book, because I did not comprehend these books at all. And a lot of the time, when it was time for me to read these books, I would completely shut down, and I would make some excuse to get in trouble. I'd forget the book, whatever it was. And you know, this teacher specifically never asked me, like, why did I struggle? Why was that happening? And I constantly got suspended from his class because I would not participate or I'd get in trouble, right? And I remember Miss C in my homeroom class would be like, why are you being sent out? Why is this happening? Because you are doing great in all your other classes, right? You're not struggling anywhere else. But and I would constantly go to her class when I would get suspended, because just later on she knew what I was going through. But he never took the time, right, to and kind of to what you were saying, Trustee Phillips. Actually, I think your story really you know, resonated with me, because unfortunately this teacher never went the step to understanding, and it could have been very easily found out, right? And it was the only class in high school that I actually failed. No other class did I get less than a C, and his was the one I failed, because we just never connected. And on top of that, one time I heard him make a comment, which actually it's so funny. I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone except for, you know, my very close family. I heard him mention to another student once, you know, I hear he has an accent. I believe it's because he comes from a low-income community, and that's just the level of lack of understanding. Like, if he would have asked, he would have known. I just arrived to the United States less than 6 months ago, but he made the assumption I actually was from a low-income community in the United States, and that's why I couldn't speak well. So that really resonated with me. I think of that all the time, especially when I was a teacher. I used to think about that all the time, of not making assumptions, of asking why, or trying to support students specifically who were struggling, who wanted to leave my classroom, who didn't want to participate, right? Like, and finding the why, because I believe that's ultimately what Miss C did that led to my success, right? So So that's a story of to me of someone who had a very negative effect. But in a way, it ended up being a positive because I never wanted to be Mr. C, right? I always wanted to be Miss C. So that's my story. I'll pass it on to our next person. Mr. Christian, I don't know if you'd like to go next, or I'd be happy to send it to whoever's ready. Mr. Christian, would you like to go?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wow. This is real tough. Just reflecting on, saying the positives and negatives, or just looking at the whole thing of coming through education. Like I say, I for me, I wish I had teachers that really cared back then, that could have helped me. And I was just an average student, barely made it. I just did enough just to pass. And as I look back on this, this is not good. But I made it. But I just didn't have the positive. The people to help me. And basically, I cried through school. Rejection. And it just looking back, that's the reason why I have my heart now, is that we have to make sure that our kids go to the next level, and helping all of our students to be good students, successful students. So that's pretty much. I just don't have much else to give, but I do know that it takes people with love in the heart to do what's right.
Thank you, Trustee Christian. I really appreciate that. We'll go to Trustee Reckler. Would you like to go?
Sure. So rather than pick out an individual, it's very clear to me that there was a confluence of factors around math instruction. And it was, I think, let's see. I mean, it was subject matter that I could never connect to. I didn't understand why I needed to know it. Didn't make any sense. I didn't care about triangles. I don't care what happened when you divided them in half, or it never, through, almost all the way throughout, especially high school. There certainly was some instruction that was less than optimal. And Trustee Gonzalez mentioned rigidity. I also have that written down, that it was actually, some of it was very unforgiving, and I don't know if that was the subject matter or the way it was taught, but that was also a problem for me. In New York State, we have the regents. So that means at the end of the year, you take a standardized test. Everybody takes the same test. And what I ended up doing, at least for 3 of the 4 years, it may have been 4 of the 4 years, is that you could take a summer school class, or you have the opportunity to take it again in the summer. And what I found working for me was when I could decompress and take the time to think differently, I actually ended up taking the Regents again during the summer, at least 3 of the 4 times, I think, and actually doing quite well. So it's also when you have the space and you've cleared out everything else, all the other projects and everything else that you have to do, and you have some time where you may be able to devote. Maybe that's one way. Maybe that's what helped. But it was certainly all throughout the the years, and everything that I've done through that has really been through on-the-job training. So I'll end it with that. Maybe a little time and space is the way to come through some of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. Appreciate that. We'll move to Trustee Smith-Foltz, if you are ready.
When I was in elementary school, first grade, I was determined to be a delayed reader. So I had to get taken out of class, and there was the red birds and the blue birds. And the red birds, we went out of class and we went to reading intervention class, while the blue birds stayed in, the classroom and they read or whatever. So the red birds, was a small group of us that went out, and we would go through this reading intervention program the whole first grade year. When I got to second grade, teachers got to do their class where they wanted their kids to sit, and all the Black kids sat in the back. The teacher put us in the back. We all sat in the back. And again, this is in Alabama. We all sat in the back, and the teacher sent a note home. They would literally pin the notes to you. So they sent a note home to my parents saying that I needed to go into special education classes. And so my mom and my dad went for a meeting with the second grade teacher, and they called in the reading intervention teacher, and they also had the principal there, that same principal that I was telling you about. They had them there, and the principal and the reading intervention teacher and my parents both said, she does not need to go into special education. We have no idea what you're talking about. And the reading intervention teacher said she passed the program, she's reading, it takes her a minute, but she can still do it, whatever. And then the principal looked at my father and my mother, and they knew my brother, my older brother, who was 1.5 years ahead of me. And my dad was like, she's not going into special education. She doesn't need it. She doesn't, I don't know what you see in the classroom, but it's something else. And my dad insisted that it was something else. I don't know what it is, but it's something else. Well, guess what it was? I sat in the back of the room and I needed glasses. Couldn't see. I couldn't see. I was all the way in the back of the room by teacher's choice, put me in the back of the room, and I couldn't see. My father, when he came to school with me, because he came to school with me, he took off of work and he came to school with me, and he said, I want to see what's going on. And when he saw where I was, he was like, well, oh, okay, she's in the very back. And so he was like, move her to the front. And when he moved me to the front, I could see. And then my mom and dad went to go get me glasses, and I've been wearing glasses since the second grade. The impact that had on me is we all come in with something. And if we're not very careful what we come into, we can try to change the trajectory of kids' lives. And if my parents, the reading intervention teacher, and my principal did not know me, they would have just assumed what was being told to them was right about me. So that incident always told me it takes everybody. When I go to school with my kids, I know my kids. You can't tell me something that I don't know about these kids, because I'm invested in them. So when you tell me something about them, I'm going to tell you if that's accurate, if that's not. I've surrounded my kids with teachers who also know them, because I tell the teachers, hey, this is what she's doing. If she does this, this means this, X, Y, and Z. So it's built a strong foundation for my children to go through public education, because every teacher is not those teachers that we talked about in the first half of this exercise. And we have to just be clear about that. Every situation is not the situation that we talked about in the first half. So we want to have those teachers who are saviors, your Miss H's and your Miss C's. We want to have those, but we also want to make sure that we have a strong foundation of parents and parental confidence. My dad was confident enough to say, that's not my kid. Nope. My kid doesn't need that particular resource. My kid doesn't need that particular help. There's something else. And we had a principal that said yes to my father coming into the classroom. Go in and see what's going on. You know her better than I do. And we had a reading intervention teacher that says, no, she got the resource that she's needed, and now she's ready to move on. So that's my second grade story.
Thank you, Trustee Smith-Foltz. Really appreciate that. So we're going to move to and end with President Phillips.
Thank you. So my negative story, and I have more than one, but the one that sticks out is the one that I'm going to share. This was Miss D. Now, Miss D, Miss D told me that I should drop out of school and go get a job. And at the time Miss D told me this, I wasn't, you know, I wasn't in third grade, obviously, but by the time she told me this, I was bigger, and and I was more stubborn. Um, some of the personalities you may see now. Um, and so my reaction to her was very different, right? And it was uh, it was a more of of an of an anger, right? And so let me just put this in context of, like, so when this happened, this I was uh, I think I was 18, so I had just started school. So I was out of high school, and I had just started college, and I went to a community college. And this is what this person told me. Um, and so there was, I had kind of, like I said, my personality as an adult, right? Like it had started to develop already. So it wasn't like I'm gonna listen, but it was more of like an angry kind of thing. And I remember taking the attitude that, like, I'm not leaving. This is what I'm gonna do, and also I'm gonna show you. And I ended up being, when I left community college, I was actually the student commencement speaker. And Miss D was on the stage. And I remember with the cap and gown, and I remember walking by Miss D, and she had the most disgusted look on her face. And I just wanted to laugh at her. I really did. I didn't, of course. And I went to the microphone and I did my speech. Um, but I just never forget that. And like, she could have told another student that, and it might have like totally, broke them. And my response was just different, you know. And so, but those, I know other people have a Miss D, that basically tells them either directly, like she told me, you're not good enough, you should leave, or by their actions said, you're not good enough, you should leave, and you're not worth my time, right? And so, like, when you treat somebody like that, and for me, you'll hear me say this, I was 18 at the time, but like, to me, an 18-year-old is a kid still, you know. I mean, so when you're talking to these kids, even if you don't relate to them or you don't see it, that doesn't mean that there's not something there, and you can say something to a child and just totally screw them up, and just totally screw them up. I remember, and this is just a similar thing because it's an example. Like, I remember I wanted to be a fighter pilot, um, for like quite some time, and the first job I ever had was in a warehouse at an Air Force base. And I remember telling these guys who worked in the warehouse that I wanted to be a fighter pilot, right? I was like, I'm Top Gun and Tom Cruise. I'm shooting everybody out of the sky, right? That was me, G.I. Joe. And and I remember they told me, they were like, you can't. They said, you're too tall and you can't see. And I couldn't see, right? That's true. Um, and and I believed them. Now, at the time, I was 15 years old working, right? I didn't realize that they didn't know what they were talking about. I was a kid. I didn't realize they were working in a warehouse like me. They didn't know nothing about being a fighter pilot. I just saw two grown men with fatigues on that I knew were in the Air Force. So when they told me I couldn't be a fighter pilot, I just believed them. It wasn't until I got to law school where I had another student that I went to school with whose dad was a fighter pilot. And this is kind of right before I went to the reserves. Her dad was a fighter pilot, and she was like, "You're not too tall. You're not too tall to be a fighter pilot, and your vision, that is an issue." She was like, "But you can do two things. One, you can do like LASIK. You could get corrective surgery, and you could go fly jets. Or if you don't want to do that, you could fly other planes. It's just not jets, not fighter jets. You could, fly cargo planes or whatever, right?" But by the time that happened, I was totally doing something different. because I listened to some nuts when I was 15 years old who didn't know what they were talking about. So like you can say things to kids and just totally change their lives because now you got them thinking they can't do things that they can do. And that's what Miss D tried to do to me. And I will never forget that. So that's my example.
Thank you, President Phillips. And with 2 minutes to spare, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. One, for being vulnerable, for sharing your stories. I know it's not easy. It was not easy for me to share, especially when we probably haven't shared a lot of these stories with many people. But I do think that it shapes a little bit of, I mean, not just of our stories, but also of in my opinion, what the kind of employees in our district we want to see, the type of people that we want to see, the type of culture we want to see. I believe that all of us believe in deeply investing in our employees, since they're going to be the people who ultimately create the change with the kids in our classrooms. So these type of conversations are so essential. And for a long time, sometimes we run away from having the difficult conversations of the negative effects sometimes people can have on things. But and the positives as well. And I think that we need to do more of these things. So, I appreciate you, President Phillips, for thinking of this exercise. And I appreciate all of you for really engaging in it. And I'm excited to see the next one. So I'll pass it back to you, President Phillips.
Mr. Gonzalez Hoy, thank you so much for leading that. You did a great job, and I appreciate your presence here today. The next exercise is going to be led by Mr. Christian. So Mr. Christian, it's on you. Again, you have approximately 50 minutes to complete this exercise. And for Trustee Smith-Folds, our break will come after this.
All right, thank you, President Phillips. This is something, for all of us to think about. And as we continue to exercise and the first one will be, we have all felt unsafe or uncomfortable at school. And basically to look at, recall on how did you feel, by being unsafe? And then I want us to be able to describe what happened, how it affected you, and then what you wish had been done differently. Do I need to go back over it one more time, or is it clear? Okay.
Trustee Christian, sorry. So it's just a time in our school career that we felt unsafe, just to clarify.
Yeah, it says we all have felt unsafe or uncomfortable at school. And basically, if you could recall back, maybe, in your career, or you going back in your school days when you was in school, elementary or middle or high school, or even now, but basically describe how do you, how was you affected by it? And I guess I could start off, with myself first, with the responding to the first question of this is, when I think back feeling unsafe in school, that I was always bullied and picked on, or people talked about your clothes. I remember I had this animal shirt on back in elementary, and I got picked on for wearing that particular shirt. And when I look back on that, I basically was kind of like in the point, didn't want to be there, didn't want to be at school. And I was looking, for, I went to the teachers and nothing happened. And so it just, stuff went on. And actually I was Man, so I was affected by that in so many ways. And then I guess the other part to it is what happened and how it affected me as a student. It kind of it made me feel that I wasn't important. It made me feel that you know, I don't have a status quo. So it kind of it put, you know, I just kind of withdrew from people. And then basically, thirdly, what wish had been done differently. I wish the teachers, I wish the adults would have stepped to the plate um, and corrected and um, and and helped and had supported me. So, all right. So I'm going. So we're going in order. Okay. I'm gonna pass this to Leslie Reckler.
So, as I mentioned before, there was an awful lot of fighting, like daily fighting, classroom fighting, cafeteria fighting. The last 4 rows of our school bus was a rolling fight. Uh, I mean, it was just normalized behavior. We actually had a school bus driver that had a baseball bat, carry a baseball bat behind his seat, and he would on occasion pull the bus over and like walk down the aisle and bang that bat on the seats. And I mean, there it was really there fighting everywhere. And things did happen. Certainly there were conferences, those kinds of things definitely happened, but I'm not aware of what happened, nor am I left with a feeling that anything was corrected, because I just remember this, for years. And then Trustee Christian also reminded me of I don't want to say it was really bullying. Yeah, maybe it was, but certainly around the clothes and the hair and the shoes and what you wore and um, certain rules about conforming. And perhaps if you know what, it probably was bullying. That if you weren't dressed a certain way or your hair wasn't a certain way, certainly there was stigma attached to that for sure. Um, I look at what schools do now in terms of restorative practices and trying to bridge differences. We've come a long way. There's obviously more that we need to do, but it is quite different. It's better, no question. I see it with my own kids. Their outlook, they're much more flexible. I do think that progress has been made, and I think it's finding the commonality and recognizing the human and celebrating the differences. I mean, I think that my kids celebrate the differences much more than we ever did, and so I'm optimistic about some of the things I see. But certainly, when I look back, fighting it was normalized behavior. Thank you. Oh, we also had a fire drill every day during 7th period in my 7th grade class. Somebody every day would pull the bell and run away. So.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Trustee Jamila Foles.
So for me in high school, there was a celebration. Martin Luther King Day was celebrated, but in my high school in Alabama, that was also the day that everybody celebrated Robert E. Lee Day. So it was always, that was the day that you couldn't be friends with the person you were friends with the day before. So it was a clear divide. Either you were celebrating Martin Luther King Day or you were celebrating Robert E. Lee Day. There was nothing in between. So the day before, the people that you played in the band with, the people that you ate with next to the cafeteria, your friends that were a different race. And in Alabama, there was only two, it was black and white. If you were somewhere in between, you had to be black or white. You just picked, you were black or white, or somebody picked for you, you were black or white. So on the day that Martin Luther King Day would be celebrated, Robert E. Lee Day would be celebrated. So you had kids that would come in with, Martin Luther King, or we would wear the Pan-African flag colors. And then you had other kids that would come in with the Confederate flag shirts on, or they would wear Robert E. Lee things, or, general things from that part of the Civil War South. So that was the most unsafe day in high school every year. Every year, that was the most unsafe day to be in school, not elementary school, not junior high, high school. That was the most unsafe day, because in elementary school and in junior high, it was very multicultural, celebrate everybody. We're all, it was that kumbaya kind of atmosphere. When you got to high school, and I don't know, kids start coming into themselves, or I don't know what it is in high school, but that was the hill that everybody chose to fight on. And Trustee Reckler, that's when we had the fights. That's when we had the problems. And it took, after the celebration of Martin Luther King Day / Robert E. Lee Day in Alabama, it took weeks and months to heal that every year. And then you would get back to that kind of norm, back to that healing space, I guess. But it never really was healed. It was just a Band-Aid until the next year, when the same thing happened. And that's the most unsafe that I know probably every kid that went to my high school felt every year. Oh, and you said what could be done differently. We don't have the time to say what could be done differently about saying that Martin Luther King Day and Robert E. Lee Day should be the same day, or celebrated in the same way. Or I know that the administration in high school always said, well, everybody has the right to say, really? You celebrate what you really? So that's what was the most unsafe day for me. Thanks, Trustee Christian.
Thank you. And then we have Trustee Dimitriya Gonzalez Hoy.
Thank you, Trustee Christian. So I had a hard time thinking about a specific time, right, for unsafe or uncomfortable, but like I mentioned, my first year in the United States was the most miserable time in my life. I feel like it was when I felt the most unsafe and uncomfortable in all my years, because I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, like I mentioned before. And in part is because I wasn't accepted anywhere. And part of it was honestly my identity and my accent that got in the way. I got made fun of and was bullied a lot because of my Mexican heritage. Because I couldn't say words right. So I worked really hard on my first year here to get rid of my accent. And the highest praise that anyone could have given me until very recently, when I moved to Richmond and I found my identity again, was, oh, I wouldn't have even known that you were from another country. Like, that was the biggest praise anyone could have given me. Because anything that had to do with my own identity and my past, like, I wanted to push back away. So, I think creating that unsafe environment for me until I was actually invited, my school, not to the extent of Trustee Folds probably, but like I mentioned, in my school, we were very much divided because it was mostly Caucasian. There was a larger group of African-American students and a small group of Latino students. And like I mentioned, I wasn't really accepted by Latino students. But one day, one of who ended up being my best friend, who was an African-American student, invited me to play basketball with them. And I don't know, I never asked. I wish I would have asked. Maybe I will now. Like, what caused him to invite me to play basketball with them? Because you all know I'm short now. You can imagine I was even shorter then. And I definitely wasn't built for basketball. So it had probably nothing to do with that. But, I don't know if it was something that he saw, kind of something that he went through and what I was going through, or what it was. But he and his friends, who ended up becoming my best friends, really took me on their wing. And that honestly framed a lot of my next few years, how that affected me as a student. Like I mentioned, I felt like I didn't belong. I wish my school would have created, or my district would have created an environment where I felt included, where I felt supported, where I felt, invited. Thankfully, later on, that was done by Miss C and by others. But that first year was completely miserable. And what could have been done differently? Again, I think a lot about our newcomers here in the district. We get hundreds of newcomer students, right, every year. And I'm really thankful about things like the internationals programs and things like that we are creating that hopefully will lead to no one feeling the way that I felt when I first came to the United States. Then that won't lead to anyone falling through the cracks. And so I that's kind of like a lens that I always look at, and something that I hope that we can change over time. Because just not to go too much further, but just in my wife's class, she has 2 English language learners that speak very, very little English, and she doesn't speak their language, right? So it's like I always see like, okay, what's going to happen to those students? And she tries so hard, right? But she's overwhelmed, especially right now. So like, and that's just one example, right? We have those examples everywhere in our district. So how can we strengthen that, build that, and not have students who felt the way that I did? So thank you, Trustee Christian.
Thank you, Trustee Hoy. Next, we have Trustee Phillips, President Phillips.
Thank you, sir. So this is a high school story. So I went to I attended 3 different high schools. Okay. So this is one of those high schools. So there were gangs, and there were some boys who this is 10th grade. There were some boys who were sitting in the back of the classroom, and they would make fun of people, right? And they were gang members, okay? And they would make fun of people, all kind of people, right? And just say all kinds of things about people and just harass them through math class, right? And the teacher, who this dude was like 6'4", and probably 280 pounds. He was huge, but he would never say anything. He would never tell them to stop. He would act like he didn't hear it. And they would just do this, and they didn't do it to me. And I would just sit there and do my work, right? So one day, they decided it was my turn, and they began doing it to me. And this was going on for a, a couple of days. And the teacher was watching and would never say anything. And I remember I got up, and I walked to the back of the classroom, and I confronted these kids, both of them in the classroom. And the teacher, let me back up just a little bit how this happened. Let me back up just a little bit. So they're doing this, and I'm not saying anything. I'm just kind of doing my work because I wanted to play basketball. I was a basketball player, right? So I'm trying to do my work. And then so one day, and Dimitriya, all stories go back to basketball. So one day I was behind the school playing basketball, and these girls who were in the math class walked up to me and said, "Why you let those boys talk to you like that?" And like a lot of teenage boys, that started another chain of reaction. And I just looked at them. I didn't say anything, but that was the last time these boys were going to talk to me like that, right? So I confronted. Now going back to where I had skipped part of the story. So I actually got up one day and walked to the back of the classroom, and I had confronted these boys, right? And like a lot of people who are bullies, right? At the time, I was actually bigger than both of them, and they kind of just stopped, right? But it was really embarrassing. And then because I didn't necessarily confront them nicely, right? And then other kids in the classroom started talking about him or not. And the whole time, this giant of a teacher we have is not saying anything, all right? Fast forward, I knew after I had done this that something was going to happen. And so I had actually gone home, and uh, I got a tire iron, like, you know, that you jack up a car with to, you know, I got a tire iron, and I put a tire iron in my backpack. And I came back to school with a tire iron in my backpack. And I didn't confront anybody or anything like that, but I knew something was going to happen. And and if it did, I was going to beat these students with a tire iron on campus. And you all know I wear glasses. My vision is not that good. And what happened is I was walking home. This is like the next day. I was walking home and I was on the side of the building, and and I wasn't wearing my glasses. And this is kind of how things happen, right? So I wasn't wearing my glasses. So I couldn't see, and my vision was better at the time, but I couldn't see like facial expressions. You know, like people wear glasses, you want to pretend you don't need them, and you can't see people and all that kind of stuff. So I wasn't wearing them because I was walking my girlfriend home and whatever, and that's how I wanted to look. And I remember this kid. He started walking towards me. It was a body, but I couldn't see the look on his face. And so he got too close to me. And when he got close enough to me, he hit me right in my face. And then what happened is like literally I like staggered back. And then like it was like 6 other guys like came out of different places and they beat me up on the side of the school. And I remember that like and then they like all ran off, right? Like then there was like, well, no, there was like one that was kind of got like the last lick, and then they like kind of all ran. And then I remember all this happened on the side of the school. Like there was no supervision, right? And so like you're listening to the story and you're seeing like where adults are supposed to be in places, and there are all of these breakdowns that are happening. And then I remember it's over, and then like the campus, you know, folks come, and they're like the other people around, some of them didn't even attend the school, right? So we have people on campus beating up people who didn't even go to the school. And but remember, there's this tire iron in my bag. And like, thank God I didn't have my glasses on, or that I wasn't able to see his face, that the expression on his face, because I would have knew it would have been like danger, right? So this tire iron never comes out of my bag. And I remember I'm being escorted down the side of the school, and then like the police are there. And I'm going to tell you a story. Like, if you ever been on the side of Richmond High, there's where like you would go into like the area to like dress or whatever. There like gym kind of like there's like this like a wall, and you can like walk behind the wall because it's like stops the door, you know, the doors, right? So like you can walk behind, like it's literally like a retaining wall. And I remember I was walking with it because they were escorting me away from the fight, and the tire iron starts to fall out of my bag. And I remember I separated from the adult that was walking me and walked behind the retaining wall and tied up like zipped up my bag. So the tire iron did. I know they were like, why did you just walk behind the wall? So the tire iron doesn't come out, and then I come back on the other side. And so that happened after school. The next day, right, I knew what had happened to me after school. I cut sixth period. I left after fifth period so I wouldn't be at the school after sixth period, because I didn't want to give them a chance to do it again. That was the first time I ever cut school in my life. I had never cut school before, um, but I cut school that day because I was afraid for my safety, and that there was not any adult that was going to stop me from getting hurt. And when I came back to school the next day, people told me, other kids, they said they were looking for you after school. So I'm like, okay, I'm glad I cut school. So then I was like, okay, now they know I left. So this day I'm gonna cut after fourth period because they knew I left after fifth period. They would have figured it out. They said, came back the next day, they said that they were looking for you again, right? So then the next day I cut after third period. I keep like reducing my school day because I'm trying not to get beat up, right? And then finally I reduced my school day to third period. And I remember like talking to my girlfriend, and I was like, I'm gonna leave after third period, um, like lunch. So I'm not there at lunch. And and the way this stopped is because I went home one day, like I went home and my dad came home early and saw me just sitting in the apartment and was like, what are you doing here? And then because I didn't tell him anything. And then I had to explain everything. And then I remember talking to my girlfriend at the time, and she was like, you know, like you're gonna get shot. Like like she was afraid I was gonna get shot. I started to get afraid I was gonna get shot, and I had to leave the school. Um, and like, what do I wish had happened differently? Like, I wish that that giant teacher had actually had control of his class. I wish that we had got separated. I wish that somebody had been actually on the campus watching the kids, you know, after school on the side of the building. Um, those are the things that I wish had been done differently, but none of them were. And I wish that adults know that like little small things, like there's little things that happen and then they escalate and then they escalate. And then like if you don't nip it in the bud, like somebody could get really hurt. Like I really brought a tire iron to school to hit another child, right? And it all happened because I was started because there was a classroom where I wasn't doing anything but minding my business and trying to do my work. And some kids were allowed to do what they were doing and the teacher never said anything. And then we were out later and then so I'm not going to retell the story, but that's the time that I felt uncomfortable. It affected me. It started me skipping school and it made me leave my school. Um, so that's my story.
Thank you, President Phillips. Appreciate that, and thank you uh, to everybody who shared their story, because it means a lot, and we learned something from each other today. I'm gonna pass it back to President Phillips.
Um, Mr. Christian, thank you very much for leading that exercise. You did a great job as well. We are now going to take, it's 10:51. I don't, I keep thinking about that show Parker Lewis, but it's 10:51. We can't synchronize our watches. But we're going to take a 10-minute break. Now it's 10:52. So we'll be back at 11:02. Can I have a motion from someone to go to recess until 11:02?
So moved.
Can I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I guess technically we're supposed to do a roll call because we're in video. I'm sorry. I asked. I should have gone through the names. I apologize. Mr. Gonzalez Hoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith Folds,
Yes.
Mrs. Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Mr. Christian,
Yes.
Phillips, yes. Okay, we're on recess until 11:02. Thank you, everybody.
Trustees, can you hear me? Just wanted to let you know that Trustee Gonzalez called me. He had a family emergency, and so he's going to be running late to get back if he does get back. So he just wanted me to share that with you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
For letting us know. So guys, as we're gonna, since Mr. Gonzalez Hoy may not be able to come back to this meeting, we're gonna continue, but please keep him in your thoughts and think about him as we go through this, okay? So our next exercise is going to be led by Mrs. Reckler. And again, we have up to 50 minutes to complete this exercise. Ms. Reckler, it's on you.
Great, thank you very much. So now we're going to get a little real and we're going to do a scenario that's perhaps a little more present day. And so we're going to do a district related exercise like scavenger hunt, if anybody has ever done that. And the exercise is going to be called Close School. And here is the exercise. The school district just got 2,000 new students. Yay! As a result, the school board has decided to reopen Adams Middle School. You are the chair of the school reopening committee. What essentials does Adams need to successfully reopen? Why did you pick these essentials? Each participant will pick up to 3. Hopefully, we can all pick different things. So that is the assignment. And any clarifying questions before we get started? None, good, okay. So I will start you off with just an example for the first one, which would be if we're talking about Adams, certainly we're gonna have to talk about a building. And so it would, you know, the state of Adams right now is unoccupied. It's been unoccupied for years. There would have to be quite a bit of thought around what happens to that site. And so a large part of the reopening committee's work would be around a site. What does site look like? What does site cost? Is it a site where we can put students? Is it a real building? Is it portables? So there would be all sorts of questions related to site and site development. And so that is the type of answer that we'd be looking for here. And so President Phillips, correct me if I am not correct, but I believe Ms. Smith-Folds would head us off on this.
Well, we're doing the modeling, right? And then the same order. So it
would be Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Great. So Smith-Folds, if you'd like to start us.
So we had 2,000 new students. We need a place to house them. So Trustee Reckler, you said we need a site. I'm gonna go with that. We need to pick that site lead. So we need to pick that administrator so they can be on the groundbreaking start of this so they can help build that foundation. And I would do that by making sure that I'm tapping into the community.
Can I cut in just a moment? If each one of us can pick 3 things, so 3 essentials. So at the end of this, we'll basically have 15, and hopefully everybody's going to pick something different, but 3, just to go back, that's all. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I would pick, so like, can I name an administrator? Would that be one thing that we need? Okay.
This is Trustee Reckler. I just butted in, I'm sorry.
So Trustee Reckler, would that be right? Like I could pick an admin? We need a good admin team?
Yes, so if you if you believe that that would be an important thing to have to bring the project to life, yes, absolutely. And you don't need to name anybody by name. You can name just a position, you know, it doesn't have to be a specific.
Okay, so I would pick a good admin team and all of that, what all of that entails. I would also pick the teacher teams, like how many, an adequate number of teachers to fulfill those 2,000 students' needs. And then I would pick staffing, good staffing, from our custodial to our cafeteria to our office staffing. So those are the three things that I think we need to build a school.
And to dig in a little deeper on each of those, for an admin team, what might be in your mind about what might make that up, or the positions you feel would be important, or the...
So if we're doing 2,000 kids, if we're doing 2,000 kids, if they're all 2,000 kids are going to Adams, then we're gonna need a large admin team. We're gonna need a principal and a couple of APs, and we're gonna need assistant principals. We're gonna need, the staff is going to need, we're gonna need attendance clerks. We're gonna need our office managers. We're hopefully have health center. We're gonna need our cafeteria workers, our day custodians, our night custodians. We're going to need facility help. We're going to need our teaching staff, because you're going to have 2,000 kids. We're going to have to figure out class sizes and have the teaching staff that matches that. We need our coaches. So that's what I'm talking about. Staffing the school in all of its form are my three things.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move to, I guess, President Phillips. I believe you're next on the list, since Trustee Gonzalez is not able to join us.
Okay, thank you very much. Very quickly, I want to just say Trustee Gonzalez Hoy sent me a text message, and he said that his mom called and that his godmother passed away an hour ago from COVID. And so he is talking to his family right now, and he hopes to rejoin us. So we got 2 ministers on this line. So please, everybody, please be praying for Trustee Gonzalez Hoy's family.
Thank you for that.
You're muted, Trustee Phillips. You're muted.
Thank you very much. So my three things, books. The kids need books, and I would like them to have current, up-to-date books. And I know that that could mean, things that are on their tablets, perhaps. It could mean traditional, hard covered, hardback textbooks. But I want them to be, aligned to the standards. I want the books to be current, not like 20 years old or 15 years old. And I want the kids to have books that they could, take home, right? So not just have to, use them at their site, but where they can actually, those move with them. So that would be, you guys already talked about, admin and teachers. I would like them to have books. And I would like them to have food that they want. And what I mean by that, and I'm speaking very gingerly, right? But what I mean by that is, like, I have 4 kids, right? And so they ask for all kinds of things. And they don't always get like exactly what they want, right? So I don't mean, when I say what they want, like, I want pizza and Fritos every day. I don't literally mean that, right? But like food that is healthy, that they actually want to eat, even if that's not like the specific thing that they want, like at that time. at that minute. So books, food, and I want them to have activities that they can do, right? That that are engaging to them. And then like the kids all will like different things, right? So like maybe some of them want to play an instrument, or maybe some of them want to do some kind of, team sports, maybe some of them want to, play chess, whatever. Maybe they don't know what chess is, and if somebody taught them that, they would really like it. But just, things that keep them engaged and things that make them uh, want to come to school. And like sometimes, kids, every kid is different, and some kids may not necessarily want to be on campus. There may be like some activity that brings them there, and that's what kind of hooks them. So like I don't really care how we hook them, just as long as we hook them. So my three are um, books, um, food, and activities, and then with some of the things that you have all said around staff, right? Um, I just want to tweak it a little bit, and like my Mrs. H and you know Trustee Gonzalez Hoy's, Miss C, and the teacher in Westchester that everybody knows, that just stood out, that principal that walked you across the street, or watch you walk across the street. Um, that professor at Howard that just showed you that like they loved you and invested you, like because like we could get staff, right? But I just want to say like that's how I want them to be, like those people that you all have described today. So that's my piece.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to board member Christian.
Right, thank you. Um, as I was just sitting here, just thinking about it, um, for the school to reopen, you want to make sure you have services to service the needs of our students. And I call them wraparound services to help all of our students to go to the next level. So I would look at services, and then also you also look at that good leadership, good team. A good team makes a good school. A good team will um, build cohesiveness on a school campus to make sure that campus is moving in the right direction. And then I would say is to bring back real food in the cafeteria, not no generic. I think back in the day, they did cook real food and they did have real stuff, and kids did eat well, and they could not wait to go to the cafeteria to eat real food. Um, and that's proven from the past. So I bring back real food. And what we also have to look at is culinary. Why we can't teach our kids about culinary? Why we can't teach our kids about cooking and helping them to, what's wrong with that? So I would look at culinary, because you have restaurants out here. You have people who goes into business, down the road some point in time. So, but if we train our kids in uh, in that area, we can have good food. So those are my areas. Some of the things I look at.
Trustee Christian, if I could ask you a couple of more questions around wraparound services, because I had that written down too, and you stole it from me. What specifically, is there anything specific that you see in that?
Yeah. When you look at wraparound services, you might have kids that are struggling with certain things, but they have the services to help them to overcome those struggles. you know, to help give them a positive direction to go in. You know, sometimes my kids, like, for example, like I would say kids at a disadvantage, you know, it helps build the self-esteem in a person, you know, giving them, you know, hey, you can do this. But, you know, it just that motivational type, pushing somebody forward.
So might it take the form of mentoring?
Yes, I would say mentoring.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of other things to add. First, as I said before, culinary, the food service, feeding people. I believe that's something that the internet is going to change, but it's never going to get rid of because you're going to have to eat. So I think it's a really safe career, even though it's obviously shifted and it's been very, very hard on our mom and pop restaurant owners. But the food industry, it is rewarding. The people in the food industry are wonderful. They're really kind and caring people, and they're all about a good time. I mean, it is hospitality from the heart. And I believe it's an industry that will continue to grow, even though it will evolve, obviously. The other thing that Trustee Christian touched on that I would also want to include, it falls along the lines of mentoring and community engagement. And there are a number of programs where we can have the community come into schools to mentor and teach. And I've tried to do that throughout my life. And we do have programs in our district, like the Writer Coach Connection, where we have trusted and caring adults coming in and helping kids with their critical thinking and their writing. And I would love to see more of that in different ways. I think it's really positive for kids, and I really enjoyed my time when I worked with them. And then I want to come back to the facility again. And the one thing about the Michelle Obama School that I was so excited about was, and it's so silly, but I've heard this for years from parents, we built in shaded outdoor spaces, and that's a huge deal. Nobody really, I don't feel like that got like the press that it should have, or like the excitement. Maybe people saw it or they didn't from the drone shots, but I really appreciated that. And also the wonderful outdoor spaces that are at that school. And I would certainly like to look at building more of that in, about how to be in touch with the outside world and be able to access it and have teaching about the outside world. Because if we want to save our environment, good place to start is with being outside. And I think those are my comments on that. Would anybody else have anything to add? Maybe we could just give it a few minutes and hope that Trustee Gonzalez Hoy can come back. Sure, go right ahead, Trustee Smith-Folds.
This is exciting. I like this now. I get it. Like, it took the first round, but now, like, okay, I'm in it. I want to build on what President Phillips said: choir, band, sports, STEAM, robotics, Mesa, theater, dance, art. I want to build on what Trustee Christian said: health resources, social emotional center, counselors. I want to make sure that, to add some of the new things, I want a strong special ed program with resources for that. I want those extra things that come with the school experience: dances, movie nights, a strong PTA or a PTO, community organization, strong boosters at this school with 2,000 kids. I also want it to become an international school. Let's talk about linguistics. Let's bring other languages in. Let's make sure that we're doing global investment. And let's talk about curriculum. That's big for me. What curriculum are we bringing into this school with these 2,000 kids? How are we making sure that we are bringing in current curriculum that is going to take them to the next level, make sure that we're having the interventions that are already built into our curriculum. So yeah, I'm excited. That's my turn.
That was great. Do any other trustees have anything to add?
I don't have anything else to add, but I do just want to say that you all just built a school, uh, and I think you built a really good school, and I would go there. Um, so yeah, so I'm done. I'm done. I don't have anything to add, but I'm not sure if he's still out. So, Trustee Reckler, if he is able to come back in um, before the meeting is over, then we'll just double up on him. So you could come back to this exercise and then explain it to him, and then we can listen um, to his thoughts as well as to what should happen or what are the essential things that we need for this school to successfully reopen.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Um, Trustee Reckler, thank you so much
Oh,
for
are we
leading.
finished? Are we
No,
finished, Trustee
I
Phillips? What
thought she
about the
was.
cheerleaders and the mascot and renaming the school and the school colors? There's so much to do. Like okay, so that's it. That's the last thing, Trustee Reckler. I just don't want to forget about the extra stuff on top of it, which great. That's
Trustee,
it.
Trustee Reckler, so what I'm gonna do is all you need to do is just give me the look and I'm gonna be quiet, okay? I'm just gonna be quiet. So you guys riff and I'm quiet. When you're done, you tell me you're done. I'm not talking anymore.
I'm good. There's plenty to work on. We have plenty to work on with our new school.
Okay, so that leads us to our final exercise for today. And if Trustee Gonzalez Hoy is able to wrap back in, we're just going to pause this exercise and explain it to him so he could fit in to the exercise. So, Trustee Smith Folds, it's your turn.
Okay, I'm very excited about this exercise. So I'm going to front load a little bit so we'll all be prepared for it. So my exercise is about storytelling. So good stories ebb and flow. I come from a people where oral tradition is mandatory. From Africa to the plantations, telling stories acted as a way to teach history, explain the present, and plant seeds of hope. As a history and English teacher, being able to tell a good story was vital to getting my students invested in the lesson. As parents, we tell stories to teach moral lessons and to give warnings. The boy who cried wolf, what was the moral or the lesson? That's a question. What was the lesson or the moral behind the story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf? Do we all know that story? Okay, answer the question. What was the moral or the lesson behind that? I have all the time in the world. We already took a break, so if y'all don't know, I'll help you. But
I know. I'm sorry. I needed to go back 20 years and remember the story.
Mr. Phillips, do you remember the story?
I remember. This is like the Chicken Little at the sky falling. He kept saying there was a wolf, and then there was no wolf, and then the wolf finally came, and nobody believed the boy, and somebody got ate. Something like that, right?
So the lesson of the story was your parents would tell you that story to tell you don't tell lies. Don't tell a lie, because then when you start telling the truth, somebody won't believe you. Let's try this one. Miss Reckler, I know you got this one. The little engine that could. What's the lesson behind the little, there you go. What's the lesson behind the little engine that could?
Oh my gosh, that was a growing up favorite. I love that story. That was all about growth mindset. That is exactly what that was about. I think I can. Absolutely. Yeah.
Very good. So that lesson was, you're exactly right. In the growth mindset, you can think your way into the success. I think I can. I think I can. Here's the good thing about stories. Some stories bring up conflict. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Some see it as a little girl searching for what fits her, and it's a story of empowerment. Other people see it as a story of a criminal, and she should be prosecuted for breaking an entry and destroying people's property. So it's one of those things that's what stories can do. So we're going to tell a story. In this exercise, we would tell a story together. We need to listen to one another, and we need to be able to create. We also need to maintain our own integrity and creativity to keep the story authentic and interesting. I want you to remember the basics of storytelling. There's setting, there's characters, there's a problem, and there's solution. So for example, I'm going to give you another example. Trustee Christian, this is on you. So here's the example, the three little pigs. What was the setting? Where did the story take place?
The three little pigs. Boy, you taking me back. One built a straw house, one built another house, but the one built the house on the foundation, and it lasted.
Right. So you got ahead of me, Mr. Christian. That's right, Trustee Christian. So Trustee Christian is the setting took place outside. Trustee Christian told us about the characters. There's three little pigs. Trustee Christian, who was the bad guy in that story? Who was the antagonist?
The wolf, the big bad wolf.
Yep, the big bad wolf, and he came to huff and puff and blow the house down.
Yep.
And Trustee Christian told us the problem. The problem was they built their houses out of 3 different materials. And then the solution was they finally went to the house that was built on the foundation, like Trustee Christian said, which was good. All right, so we're almost finished. This is what we need to do. We need to add to the story what the person in front of you said. So the person in front of you is going to say something, and then you add to the story. I will start, and then we will go area by area so we keep it organized. That's just easy for me. I don't understand the order. So it's going to be, first it's going to be me, then it's going to be Mr. Phillips until Trustee Gonzalez Hoy comes back. Then it's going to be Trustee Christian, then Trustee Christian, and then Trustee Reckler, and then back to me. Okay, so Trustee Smith Foltz, Trustee Phillips, Trustee Christian, Trustee Reckler, and around and around. We would do several rounds. We want to make sure that we are creating a full story. Now we have to be listening. We are creating a story about the school year 2021 and 2022. So listen. Here's the title of the story. Trouble don't last always. Here's the title of the story. Trouble don't last always. Here we go. Next one up will be Trustee Phillips when I stop speaking, okay? It's the first day of school. It's the first day of the school year 2021-2022. Everyone knew it would be different. No one knew it would be this different. Sam woke up, grabbed the tablet, and
Can't tell a story without speakers. Sam got up and walked to the bus stop where he saw
Trustee Christian, that's you. Where he saw.
Oh, okay. Where he saw his friends, and he got onto the bus with his friends and headed towards the school.
After he arrived at school, he was greeted by school staff where he was, where his hands were sanitized, and he was outfitted with a mask. All right, period.
He looked around and he noticed that the school was not as crowded as it typically was. Walking with his head down, he went to go get his schedule from the office, and
he bumped into his favorite teacher, and his eyes brightened up, and the teacher, she smiled, and he said,
"It's on me." Okay. And he said, "Teacher, I'm glad to be back at school. I miss school so much because we was in this pandemic that it kept us from socializing and learning together. I'm going to appreciate school more than ever because now I understand that it takes education for me to go to the next level."
And teacher said, I am so happy to see you too and all of the students. We have missed you terribly. And let me take a look at that schedule and look at that. I have you for second period. I'm looking forward to seeing you in just a few minutes. Drop your non-essentials in your locker. Head to first period, and I will see you in about 50 minutes.
Sam did just what the teacher said. He went to his locker, he fiddled with the combination, trying to remember exactly how to do it. And once he got the locker open, he put his non-essentials in there, grabbed his tablet, his charger, his book, and he walked slowly to first period. Looking around campus, he still remembers what the hustle and bustle used to look like, how he would have to push his way through class or through the hallways to get to class. Now he felt so isolated, but it was only him and maybe 4 other students in class, but he tried hard to hold his head up. When he walked inside the first period classroom, he noticed
that there was plastic in the classrooms and the desks looked different. They were separated, they were spread out. So he wasn't as close to the other students as he remembered being. And he thought that really sucked because it was going to be harder to pass notes during class to his classmates because everybody was so spread out and there were like these shields. It looked really crazy, on the desk. But he knew that everybody was doing all that they could to protect him and the other students. So he
Okay. So he asked the question, teacher, how long are we gonna continue to be in this? And the teacher said to the student, we're gonna be in this for a while. So we have to follow the protocol. We have to follow the guidelines that are set for. We have to remember that we have to continue to sanitize our hands throughout the day, wear our mask throughout the day, and making sure that we stay in the guidelines so we will all be safe.
Not only were the desks separated, but they were also in a different configuration, and the configuration was a circle. And the teacher said that although for the time being, while we have fewer students, we are going to rearrange our desks to be in a circle so that although we have some unnatural dividers, we will be able to see and hear and connect with ourselves better in this new configuration. Students, are you willing to give this a try?
Sam sat up in his desk a little bit and he realized, okay, so this is different, but maybe it's not so different that I wouldn't be able to still have an enjoyable experience. Just then, through the door came about 3 other adults, and the teacher started introducing these adults, and Sam saw that there was a school psychologist on campus. Sam met the health professionals, and Sam met his additional counselor. Sam sat up a little higher in his desk, realizing that maybe, just maybe, this is a year where he feels supported. And then the bell rang, and Sam
rushed to the bathroom because he needed to take a break. And when he got into the bathroom, he went to use the bathroom. And when he got there and he was done and he went to the sink to take care of himself, he was like, oh my God, there's finally soap. And he got to wash his hands and he got to dry his hands and he felt clean because he's like, I wish they would have had soap before. And so Sam washed his hands and went out into the hallway, and then he
All right. Then Sam went in the hallway And as he was walking down the hallway, he saw in different locations hand sanitizing stations that were set up geared towards keeping your hands sanitized, and also that you have to be 6 feet apart, I guess, and separated, and that everybody can walk like they used to walk together. And so by that being said, so he just basically said, man, this is so strange, this is so different, but we never been through this, but now we in this. Wow, this is tough.
And so returning to class, Sam realized that quite a bit was different, but realized also that there might be new opportunity. And for the rest of the class, the teacher facilitated a session on how everyone was feeling and started small with basic commonalities, what had happened, and all students shared. Started with pets. Had anybody gotten a new pet during the break, being away from school, and progressed further. Period.
And Sam felt relaxed because now he was in that second period classroom with that teacher that he met at the beginning of the morning, which was his favorite teacher. So while his favorite teacher was going through this social emotional lesson about how are you feeling? Did you get any pets? What was your favorite TV show during the pandemic? How did you take care of yourself? Sam started to take bigger and deeper breaths. He started to realize that, okay, this is going to be okay, or as okay as it could be on the first day back in such a different environment. Sam was excited to go to lunch. He didn't understand exactly what it would look like, but he knew that at some point he was going to eat. And for Sam, that was always a good thing. Sam got his best enjoyment out of sitting down and enjoying a good meal with his buddies at school. So when that second period bell rung and it was time to go to lunch, Sam couldn't wait. So he jumped up and
went and got his food and sat down on a bench. And Sam ended up having a conversation with one of the members of the youth commission. And they started to talk about this project about the youth commission, because they were at lunch working on redesigning the school lunch program with staff. And they were totally juiced about this because they've been talking about it for years, and they just started brainstorming and couldn't wait until they got into this project. And then
as Sam began to think, as we reimagine how food can be served and how that maybe real food can be done. Maybe real food can, where we would be able to have a good meal and at the same time we can learn at the same time. So Sam, saw some of his friends and said, what do you think about reimagining, looking at how we can see real food is cooked, see real food is prepared. And maybe that's something we can work on, is looking how to prepare as a culinary of eating good food.
So after lunch ended, Sam moved on to his next period class, and he came into class, and although the desks were separated and plexiglassed, he was greeted with a plethora of art supplies. And his teacher said that today we would be concentrating only on visual and artistic expression. And Sam was surprised by this and thought, wow, okay, this might actually be fun. And Sam, ...
Sam was excited when he heard his teachers say that you could stay into the classroom, where you could take your art supplies and go outside. You could go outside and you could get that, have a muse from outside, go outside and enjoy yourself. After a year of being in the house, Sam was excited that he was actually being told to go outside and relax, get some fresh air, take your art supplies and be inspired. So that's what he did. Sam picked up his art supplies. He made sure he had his mask on. He walked out of the door and he went and he sat by a tree. And when he sat by this tree, Sam looked out on his school and at what the new version of his school was going to be like. And he began to sketch. And as he sketched, he started thinking. How am I going to be able to use my voice at school? How am I going to be able to have some of those same experiences? What am I going to do to be able to be the best version of myself at this school? And the more he sketched, the more he realized
he did not fully understand the assignment. So Sam walked back into the classroom and looked at the teacher. I got you, 100 Miller. So Sam walked back into the classroom, looked at the teacher, and he said, "Teacher, you said a couple of things, and I think this is a really good assignment, but I don't understand this part. How do I do it?" And the teacher looked at Sam and realized Sam didn't get it and said, "Wow, I missed this connection. You know, I miss being able to see the expressions and then the child being able to come back and, you know, ask for clarifying questions. I missed this part of it." And so the teacher, realizing Sam didn't totally understand, took the time to explain it to Sam the way that the teacher would have normally, but wasn't able to do it, you know, that way in over Zoom. And so Sam felt like, wow, I missed this too, because there were some things that I just wasn't getting in the Zoom. And I wasn't really able to ask all of the questions that I needed to. I know people wanted to help or give me more information, but they couldn't always. It's so good to be back, you know, in front of my teacher. And the teacher, they weren't saying this to each other, they were thinking this. And the teacher was looking at Sam being like, "Oh my God, I really, you know, missed this. You know, I probably wouldn't have caught that in the Zoom, and Sam may not have been able to double back." So now that Sam totally understands the assignment because he was able to have that in-person kind of connection with his teacher, he went back outside and sat down and
as Sam went back outside and just began to reflect on before we went into the lockdown, he thought about of all the times he was messing around and wasn't paying attention. But when we went into the pandemic and being at home on Zoom and not being being connected with everybody. And then as he began to think, he reflect and looked at it. Now we back. I appreciate this. I'm back. I'm back in the classroom. I'm back. I'm ready. I'm ready to engage because I missed that connection. Now I'm ready to pay attention. Before I didn't pay attention from the Zoom, and now I'm back in the real life of a classroom. I'm ready to do better. I'm ready to do what it takes to go forward.
And Sam reflected on that. And although school was different, had a different outlook, and thought perhaps he might approach things in a different way, and was open to learning and experimenting, and felt supported and cared for.
So Sam finished art class. He gathered his stuff back up and he knew that now it was time to go to physical education. Sam was super excited to go to physical education because he knew that Coach Peters was going to be there. Coach Peters was one of his favorite coaches in the world. So he runs into the gym, he looks around, and there's no Coach Peters. Sam says, "What happened to Coach Peters? Where's Coach Peters?" And Coach Johnson says, "Coach Peters is choosing to stay at home to teach." So Sam's head drops and he says, "Okay, what are we going to do?" And these are made up names. Coach Peters and these are made up names. I'm just putting them out there. He says, well, what am I going to do now? That was my favorite coach. So the coach coach that's there looks at Sam and tells Sam.
He says, Sam, I know I'm not Coach Peters. And I know you've been around him for the last couple of years. But Coach Peters is a lot older than me. And he doesn't feel comfortable coming back right now because of his age. Do you have grandparents? And Sam says, yeah, I do. And where did your grandparents do? And he said, well, my grandma, she hasn't been out of the house in a year. She's trying to stay safe, and we're, giving her that space. And then he says to, well, that's kind of what, the coach is doing. Coach Peters is, he's 75 years old, and we got to give him some space. But in the meantime, I want to let you know that I have been waiting to come back to school because I've been waiting to get back with students just like you. And it's not just me, Sam. Every adult on this campus, regardless if they're a teacher or a counselor or a principal or a custodian or a security officer, everybody, Sam, is here for you and your friends. So I know that Coach Peters is not here right now, but you got all of these people who got your back. And we're going to get through this class and the next class and the year together. You're not by yourself, Sam. And then Sam, he starts to cry because Sam's the only child. And he's been sitting at home for the last almost a year, really, by himself, and hasn't seen really anybody. His parents, they both have to work. So he spends most of his time just alone. And it was so good just to hear this said to him because he knew he wasn't by himself anymore. And
then Sam realized that he's back around people that he used to hang around with, his friends. And Sam is basically saying, I'm so happy to be back with you guys. And you just don't know how it was. It's just when you're not able to socialize and at the same time to learn. And so Sam basically was just said, it took a whole year, but now we got our shots and now we back. And now we just have to follow the protocol of staying safe.
So Sam realized there was going to be a lot to learn and a lot had changed, but was willing to embrace it.
So Sam ended his day with a school assembly. Kids filed into the gym, separated, but still together in the gym, and in came the administrator. And the administrator started to talk to Sam and all the other students that were on campus that day. And the administrator said, this is our school. Trouble won't last always. We're going to do the very best we can with what we have. And if you ever need anything, you know that I'm here for you. All right. So, Mister, you trying to end that period? So,
I wasn't sure you hit us with the theme, and I wasn't sure if the story was over. So I was like, "Can I go next?" And I was like, "Whoa, I ain't messing it up."
So what we kind of, when we went around in a circle, what we realized is Sam did have some anxiety. Sam did have some new things that were happening. There were some norms in place. We saw that in Sam's day that there was protocols, safety protocols that were put in place. We saw that there was an acknowledgement that it is different. We saw that there was support systems with the psychologist and the counselor in the smaller classrooms, even the arrangement of the desk. We saw that there was a youth commission. There was some people at school to where Sam could figure out how to get his voice heard. We saw that there was a commitment to teachers and staff. Hi, Mr. Gonzalez, Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, how are you? We are.
Trustee Smith-Foltz, I apologize. I am late and I'm sorry I missed the last activities.
That's okay. We're glad that you're back. And we were just talking about, well, Trustee Phillips, should I stop and let Trustee Reckler jump in and then come back and add Trustee Hoy to this exercise, or what would you like to do?
So what I want to do, just because it took a little extra time, well, I mean, not extra time, that we have some more time, is we did Sam. If we can do just another story, right? And in my mind, Sam was in high school, but maybe it's in elementary school, right? And just do another story and then loop, and then re-explain the exercise, loop Mr. Gonzalez Hoy back into that story. And then we'll finish your exercise. Then after that, we'll double back to Trustee Reckler, let her re-explain her exercise, and then let Mr. Gonzalez Hoy do that. But before we do any of that, Mr. Gonzalez Hoy, totally up to you. Not trying to put you on the spot, but if you want to take a couple minutes, it's your space.
Oh, thank you, President Phillips. I really appreciate all of you. And a couple of you texted me, and thank you so much. While we were doing the morning part, my mom had called me, and I wasn't looking at my phone. So on the break, I called her back, and it just happened that my godmother passed this morning from COVID. Unfortunately, my godfather got sick from COVID last week, and she got it because of that as well. And we've been waiting, honestly, for him to pass. And unfortunately, my godmother, as soon as she got it, she got worse. So she passed, and now we're waiting for my godfather to pass too, who I'm really close to both of them. So anyways, I just had to call family, and the rest of the day I'll probably be calling family, but I'll be with you all for a little bit longer. But if at one point I turn off my camera, I know that it'll probably be because I'm getting a call from Mexico, because they're there, and I had a hard time getting in touch with certain people. So, but I appreciate all of you and giving me some grace. So thank you.
So, Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, what we're doing is we're telling a story, and so I'll start it, and then when you hear me pause, you pick up the story, and then on and on and on. We're trying to tell a complete story of the year 2021, 2022. So we just told a story about Sam. It was Sam's first day. Sam went through the, kind of the whole day. He went through first period and lunch, and he went through PE, and he got on the bus to go to school and got, and went home. So now, and Sam, the way the story developed, Sam ended up being a boy, because we didn't say that he was a boy at first. It was like Sam ended up being a boy. Sam ended up being in high school, kind of how the story went. He ended up being in high school. We kind of knew that from the curriculum that he was taking. And then Sam had, it turned out that the title of the story was Trouble Don't Last Always. And so Sam kind of ended up realizing that the trouble of the pandemic doesn't last always, but it is going to be different. When Sam came to school, it is going to be different. So I prepared that first little sentence, about trouble don't last always in his first day of school, and then we took it from there. Trustee Phillips wants us to do a second round. Okay, so when we do the second round, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to go area, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And listen for the breaks, because that's when you get to pick up and you add you take us left, right, up, down. You take us how it goes. Remember that stories have a setting, characters, a problem, a solution, and then we kind of go through it. So this story is about 4th grade twins, Tiffany and Teresa. Tiffany and Teresa wake up the first day of the school year 21-22. Tiffany gets dressed and she's ready to go. She has everything she needs and mom's going to drop her off. Teresa can't go back to school. Teresa has to stay home. Teresa has to stay home because Teresa's immune compromised. So while her twin sister Tiffany gets ready and goes off to 4th grade, Teresa stays home and she gets ready to go to 4th grade too. Her 4th grade is going to be distance learning like it's been for the past year when they were in 3rd grade. So Tiffany and Teresa look at each other, they give each other a hug because they're twins. They give each other a hug and they kiss each other, and off goes Tiffany. Tiffany goes off to school, and so Mr. Gonzalez Hoy, your area too. So Tiffany goes off to school and you pick it up.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Trustee Smith-Foltz, are we going by areas that we represent? Okay.
It's just easy for me. So it's 1, which is me, 2, which is you, 3 is Trustee Phillips, 4 is Trustee Christian, 5 is Trustee Reckler.
Sorry, Trustee Christian is 2, I'm 4.
Oh, that's a hot mess. Sorry. Okay, so let me repeat that. Okay, whoopsie. Okay, so Trustee 1, area 1 is me. Who's 2? Christian. Okay, Trustee Christian's 2. 3 is Mr. Phillips. 4 is Mr. Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, and 5 is Rick. Okay, y'all know better than I do. Okay, so Trustee Christian, Tiffany went off to school, and
Tiffany went off to school, and she was excited to be back on the first day, ready to be part of the school environment once again. And being tucked away for a good while, and everybody being on lockdown, she was happy to be back, where that she are able to see her friends and see her teachers, and then at the same time she's able to be back in the classroom and learn. And so, but she noticed there were some changes in the way that the desk was not closed, but all the desks in the room was separated 6 feet apart. Then the glass shield and so forth, and then everybody wearing a mask, and everybody is following the protocol of being safe. So Tiffany basically said to herself, I got to get used to this. And so Tiffany began to talk to counselors to get more, talk to people to get more insight and help.
But because Tiffany was a twin, she couldn't help but think about her sister, Teresa. And Teresa was part of this fantastic new online virtual academy that folks were just like excited about, right? She got a chance to actually go through, her meet her classmates, and she got a chance to talk to her teacher, and she was like, I'm at a new school. This is so cool. I'm at a new school and nobody has ever done this before. And I'm doing it now. And she was really jazzed about it. But then at the same time, she was thinking about her sister, because she's a twin, right? And her sister was at a new school too. Her sister attended Michelle Obama Elementary. And so she got to walk into the front of the building and she saw this brand new spanking shiny school, and she knew it was for her. And there was this big picture of Michelle Obama in the front that made her feel so good about herself, because she was like, I could be like that too. And then she felt like she wanted to.
And Tiffany felt like she wanted to, that she couldn't wait to share this with Teresa when she got home, and that she wanted to one day be just like Dr. Michelle Obama. And when she got into her classroom, she noticed that everybody was equally excited for the first day to be in a new school. And even though it was very weird and everything was spread out and there was plastic between the desks and the teacher was far away, it was really exciting to be around friends and people who she's meeting for the first time, but also old friends she hasn't seen in a long time. And she noticed that everybody was so much bigger than what she had seen on the screen and a year before. So everybody looked new to her and exciting. So for just 1 second, she wasn't sad thinking about Teresa at home, and she was thinking about her exciting year that was coming. And at the same time, as she was exciting and seeing other students, Teresa at home was going through the same thing, but online. The teacher was going through what the year was going to look like, which was also very exciting because at her new school, which name has still to be determined, it also felt like it had new beginnings for her. And what it was going to be different was ...
What was going to be different for her was pretty much everything. So the desks were different. There were dividers. There were fewer kids in the class. There were different protocols that needed to be followed. And she felt a little uncomfortable, excited, but a little uncomfortable. And one of her good friends ran up to her and wanted to give her a hug. And
Tiffany knew that that's not possible. Tiffany knew that she had to stop her friend and say, hey, we've got an elbow bump. You know, Teresa's at home and you know, it's just part of what we have to do now. Remember the morning assembly when they told us about safety protocols. So her friend Sarah looked at her and was a little sad, but relented and did the elbow bump. And Tiffany and Sarah walked back to class together. When they got to class, they noticed that their teacher was on the phone. And they asked their teacher, what are you doing? And the teacher said, I'm checking in. And I want to let you know that it's okay to check in. And all of a sudden, the students start getting phone calls. Phones were just going off. Fourth grade, phones were going off. There was kids having messages from the office. And what the kids realized was that the teacher had set up a time for them to get check-ins from their parents and friends because they were so used to being around people during the pandemic. And when Tiffany's phone rang, Teresa was on the other end. And they were both chatting at the same time so much that they couldn't even get a word in. And the teachers, by the time the teacher said, okay, you have 2 more minutes, make sure you tell your loved ones you will see them very soon. Teresa and Tiffany both said, I'm having a pretty good day at school. Can't wait to come back home. And by that time, they were getting ready to go to recess. And at recess, Tiffany noticed
Tiffany noticed that one of her friends is over there crying. And so she went over and to ask her friend, what's going on? Why are you crying? And her friend told her that this is hard to bear because this is not what we was used to. And now things are just so different that we have to we have to stay so far apart from each other. And so and Tiffany just basically said, we're going to get through this together, and we're going to make it. And so so Tiffany gave her elbow bump and said, we're gonna do this together. We're gonna make it and make it through this crisis. And so Tiffany basically after that, she basically went to go get something to eat.
But because we had or have or in the future both have had, right? Both adult supervision was out on the playground during this recess, and they saw the little girl crying too. And so they actually walked over to her and they thanked Tiffany for talking to her friend and comforting her friend. And then they took time out to talk to the little girl and to just check in with her and make sure that everything was okay. And it was just so good for the little girl to have somebody talk to her. Now, this is not Tiffany, it's the other little girl, somebody to just talk to her. And so it made her feel so much better. But while that conversation was going on, because they were at lunch, the staff, they were actually not that, yard person, but the staff, they were eating their lunch. And they were having a conversation in the staff room about how things were going. And one teacher said to the other teacher,
And one teacher said to the other teacher, can you step back? You are too close to me. And the other teacher very respectfully said, you're right, we're not 6 feet apart, so give me 1 second. So they stepped away and they decided to go outside, and they shared about how well their morning went and how it was so amazing to see their kids and be back in their classrooms and be back with each other. And while they were having that conversation, they saw what happened in the yard. So both teachers approached Tiffany and asked her what happened. And she told them. And then they asked Tiffany, so how are you feeling about returning back in person? And Tiffany told them that she was really happy to see her friends and see her teacher, but that she missed her sister, Teresa. So when that happened, the teacher said, well, why don't you come with me and why don't you do a quick Zoom with her to catch up and tell her about how your day has gone so far. So they went back to the classroom and they set up a quick Zoom. And when she started talking to Teresa, Teresa told her actually she was having a great day at her new school because it felt different. And when that happened,
So the other thing that teachers said to themselves is that although this is a great experience and I'm really happy to be back, I am exhausted and there is so much to remember and so much is new. So they decided that they were going to talk about that later, about how to thoughtfully absorb all the new experiences and take them in stride.
Tiffany went through the entire day. She had her moments of missing her sister, Teresa. She had her moments of anxiety. She had her moments of being able to support other students. She felt very excited that her teachers at the new Michelle Obama School realized that it was an adjustment period and they made allowances for reconnection back to what they were used to for a year, spending their 3rd grade at home. Tiffany left school that day, and before she left, the most amazing thing happened. They went into the auditorium and they had a song. So the entire school learned the song, Lean on Me. And the principal said, that's going to be our song. That's our song. That's the song that we're all going to learn. That's the song that we're all going to sing. You're going to hear it on the loudspeaker during the morning. I want you to go home and teach it to your parents. I want you to make sure that your siblings know it, because that's the song of Michelle Obama's school, Lean on Me. And the kids sat there and they listened to it. And all of a sudden, through both doors of the gymnasium came an amazing choir that sang Lean on Me. And they ended the school day very much knowing that it's going to be okay, because they will be able to lean on each other. That's it.
Trustee Smith-Folds, thank you so much for leading that exercise. That was great. And we got 2 for the price of 1. And we're going to get 2 for the price of 1 again with Trustee Reckler. So Trustee Reckler, it's on you to double back for Mr. Gonzalez Hoy.
Great, sure. So for Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, since I think we're a little bit over time and the team has done a great job, you'll just pick up the missing pieces that we did not get to. And the question or the exercise that I led was about opening a new school. And give me just a moment because it disappeared. Here we go. So our exercise is called Close School, and it is the district just got 2,000 new students. Yay! And as a result, the school board has decided to reopen Adams Middle School. You are the chair of the school reopening committee. What essentials does Adams need to successfully reopen? And we all picked 3 things, and I'll just briefly go over what we picked. So if you could think of things that we didn't. So we did go over needing a building and talk about the building and structure. We did go over staffing. We went over books and extracurriculars, food. We did talk about social services and wraparound services. And if there's anything else that you had to add that we might have left out, this is an opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to write what you guys already come up with before. Did you say after school programs?
We did
You said-
not.
okay.
Well, we sort of really didn't.
Oh, okay.
A little bit, maybe.
Okay. Maybe like enrichment programs after school and maybe even before school. Let me think. You all went over staffing already, resources. Did you mention volunteers and supports to include families?
We did a little bit in terms of mentoring.
Okay.
And some community, like the community helping to educate kids. Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Well, honestly, I think it sounds like you all actually come up with the biggest items. Can't think of anything else. I mean, it sounds like you all came up with resources for the classrooms, equipment for the students. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you all did a great job. I don't really can't think of anything else to add in the big bucket. So
We forgot transportation. Transportation.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so we have all led an exercise. I want to thank all of you for doing this. And now what I want us to do is to just take a moment for each one of us to very briefly talk about, what you got out of today. And then that will be the end of our exercises. So if we're gonna keep going with the numbers, so we'll start with Jamila Smith-Folds.
I really enjoyed building the school exercise. That was fun. Like I'm still thinking like, oh yeah, wait a minute. We English language learners, we got 2,000 students. We need to make sure that we have that covered. I was like, so building the school was very, very fun. That was a great exercise. Storytelling was interesting. You guys kept me on my feet with that one. So it was very interesting. That was a cool exercise. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing a little bit more about you guys, who you were outside of this Zoom call. Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, you and your family, you have my prayers, and I'm praying for peace that comes to you. And it was a good way to spend a Saturday morning. So I got a lot out of it. I got to know you guys more, and I got to know that if we ever had the opportunity to build a school, it'd be a great school. And I got the opportunity to know that when we do Read Across America, all of you should be in schools reading because you're good storytellers. So that's it.
Right on. Trustee Christian.
Yes, thank you, President Phillips. And thank you, Trustee Jamila Folds. Yeah, because when was just sitting here, as we was going through the exercise of this team building, it helps me to be more connected with one another. and I learned a lot from everybody because everybody brings something to the table, and to make our school district a strong school district. And everybody have a passion and a drive and a love in and helping the students, staff, teachers, and everybody to feel appreciated and being connected. And so with this exercise, it helped me to recognize this is teamwork, and that we building this together. Um, and 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 like I said in the very beginning, we could make this a top school district in this area because we know what it takes. Just like building a school, we built the school. So if we can build all of our schools in this district and seeing that all of our schools have the resources and making sure that every school is not left behind, man, we will be a top school district. I believe that with all my heart. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Mr. Gonzalez Hoy.
Thank you, President Phillips. Just to echo what Trustee Smith-Foltz and Trustee Christian said, I am very thankful for this time. I mean, today ended up becoming such a different day for me, but like even through what just happened to me, like I wanted to come back to this because I felt that this was such an important time for us and for me to learn from all of you and learn from each other just about what drives us to do this work. I think that like these type of positions, like a lot of people make assumptions of why we do this work, like what got us here, right? Like especially because campaigns are really hard, right? As you all know, and it's so critical and important for us to get to know each other as people and what got us here and what has happened in our life that has made us become advocates for kids and for communities like ours. And I got that from today because now I'm gonna be able to go back and say like, okay, I can see at this board meeting why Mr. Phillips advocating for this, right? Or why Ms. Reckler's advocating for this or saying this, right? And it'll make me be able to empathize or understand where that's going. So I got so much out of today and I'm really appreciative. I hope that we can continue to do more and spend more time together as obviously we go into the hard issues that come up, but also, I think that this will help build on the norm of being hard on issues, not hard on people, which in the past has gotten in the way, in my opinion, when people become hard on each other instead of hard on the issue that ultimately we all probably care about. So this is incredibly helpful, and thank you both, President Phillips and Clerk Smith-Foltz for today.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Reckler?
Yes, first to Trustee Gonzalez Hoy. I hope everything's okay. It's we're in, it makes it real for sure. I want to thank everybody for today. This was really fun. It was a worthwhile exercise. I don't know if I really ever thought about how hard the Brown Act made doing this, is that you can't ever talk to anybody, or you have to be very careful about what you say and to who, because you can only, it makes you have very straight and direct lines of communication. And so having these opportunities is really helpful because we get to know each other, and operating under the Brown Act, it's really hard. So I very, very much appreciated this opportunity. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
I want to do just a couple of things. I want to start by thanking the staff who is here today. It's a Saturday and you're doing like the technical things and taking notes and all of those other things that really helped to make this happen, because this could not have happened if you didn't spend your Saturday morning here with us. I want to thank all of the board members for participating and actively participating and bringing your authentic selves. Like Trustee Reckler was just saying, it's very difficult for all 5 of us to create a space where we can do this. We can't really do this in a regular board meeting, and we can all have one-on-one conversations with one another, but there's just something magical about having everybody in the same space where we're able to listen to each other and play off of each other, in an environment where we're not trying to, I vote on this and I vote on that. This is, I'm really happy. This is not the normal retreat that happens in the West Contra Costa Unified School District. So I just want to thank all of you um, for being open to doing something different. And I know that I got a lot out of listening to all of you. I got to know you better as people, um, but I also got to know what you think about schools, right? And if we just go through the exercises, um, our first exercise that Mr. Gonzalez Hoy led, um, we basically shared with each other what we think school employees should be, and how they should be, and also how they should not be, right? Meaning these are the kind of folks that we want in our organization. And that's so, important because as the board, we really should, be thinking about those kind of things, and we really should be setting the tone. But for us to do that, we have to have cross communication, with one another. You know, with Mr. Christian, you led an exercise and you got us thinking about times where we felt uncomfortable and unsafe when we're at school, just like some kids feel today. I believe in my heart the most 2 important things that we do is we teach kids and we keep them safe. Like that's it. I mean, everything else is secondary. We teach kids, not that it's not important, but it's secondary. We teach kids and we keep them safe. And so we started thinking about, man, what makes kids not feel safe on campus? And what would we like to see happen differently so they do feel safe? So they're ready to learn and they're open to learning. I mean, then we went to, Mrs. Reckler, and she led an exercise, and yeah, we got to learn more about each other and think about, our thoughts around things. But, we also got to talk about what we think is important at school sites. And each one of us got a chance to do that. And so that helped us kind of vision like, okay, if we were making a school, what would be most important? And that's an important exercise because that's what we really do. We allocate resources to schools. We try to figure out what priorities are, of course, informed by, stakeholders, but we try to figure out what priorities are. And that's what we did today together. Whether it was fun and we were going through these exercises, but whether people realize it or not, we were working this whole time. We then had a story that Mrs. Smith Folds led us through. She took us, she took us to multiple schools. She took us to a high school, and we talked about what the configurations looked like. We talked about the interactions between staff and children. We talked about how everything looks different now. She took us then to an elementary school. She talked about, we talked about staff who, we had a 75-year-old coach, Mr. Gonzalez, that before you got back on the line, who was not able to come back to work because he was too, his age, and he was trying to keep safe. And all of the other coach, the younger person, told the kid, Mr. Peterson, he is not able to come back right now because he's not safe. But all of these other adults, we're here for you. And Mr. Peterson, he'll be back one day, but we're here for you right now. You're not by yourself. And Mrs. Smith, she took us to an elementary school, right? And we had one child who couldn't come to school, just like the older staff member, but she had something for her. She had this new virtual school. And so we were working today and we were learning about each other and we were learning about our priorities. And this may not have looked like a traditional meeting, but we got a lot done. And I'm so proud of you all for being open and flexible. And I think Mr. Christian is right. We're going to be a great board, and we're going to do great work together. And we just have to remember that people have all kinds of motives. People will call into board meetings and say things to try to throw you off. People will do all kinds of things. But this is a team, and we're going to work together as a team, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it successfully because we're going to take the time to listen to one another. We're going to take the time to learn one another, and we're going to treat each other like we want to be treated. So I want to thank all of you for everything that you did today. That concludes the exercises. So item C is really an adjournment. Our next meeting is on January 13th. That's a regular board meeting for people who want to um, have open, regular, public comment like we normally do, general public comment. That will happen at that meeting. So we'll be there, ready to listen. And then on 120, we will have a study session on COVID in schools. Um, that is not a planning meeting. We're not planning to reopen schools and tell you a plan to do that on the 20th. It's an informational meeting. So we all will be able to get information and be operating on the same page. So those are our next two meetings, the 13th and the 20th. And with that, I would just want to say thank you again. I appreciate everybody for bringing their heart to this meeting. We're going to do a great job. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good Saturday.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, now take care.